This is Greater Xia, the Magic City. As the night falls, neon lights flicker and the hum of traffic fills the air. The city basks in a facade of tranquility. I stand by the window, staring at the scene outside with an indescribable tightness in my chest. This isn't a dream. I've truly been reborn. Just a moment ago, I was in a shelter, desperately fighting off the darkness, only to be torn to shreds by monsters when my strength ran out. The next moment, I was back, standing at the origin of all the tragedy. Gazing at the peaceful view before me, my expression is a mix of nostalgia and cold, steely determination. Too bad. In just a month, this peace will be devoured completely by the darkness. Who would have thought that this seemingly ordinary slice of daily life would lead to an apocalyptic invasion 1 month later? An eldritch god has set its sights on Blue Planet. It feeds on the essence of worlds, leaving an uncountable number of ruined civilizations in its wake. When this god descends, its monstrous legion will pour in like a flood. The very fabric of the world's laws will be twisted. The flora and fauna will mutate wildly. Catastrophic disasters will erupt everywhere, and humanity will be driven into shelters, barely clinging to survival. As I think about the impending apocalypse, there's no fear, only a strange sense of exhilaration. I immediately pull out my phone, open the App Store, and search for Sanctuary. There it is, Dark Sanctuary. Found it. This game is my one and only trump card to rewrite the future. In my previous life, I discovered this secret far too late. When the darkness descended, global internet connections were severed, erasing the game from existence, making it impossible to download. But the truth is, a month before the darkness descends, Earth's will awakens. It forcibly links to the remnants of worlds previously consumed by the Eldritch God and creates this game. Players who enter the game can awaken special abilities and receive their very own upgradable sanctuary. You can enhance your sanctuary, explore the wasteland, earn rewards, and recruit wandering heroes. Elves, dwarves, dragons, mages, knights, they could all serve under you. The best part? Everything in the game can be brought into reality. Many, by stockpiling during this critical 1 month period, thrived even after darkness fell. With formidable allies and impenetrable sanctuaries, they rose as overlords in a ruined age. I quickly glance at today's date, July 1st. 1 month left until August 1st, the day darkness falls. I've got only 30 days. In these 30 days, I have to maximize my strength and resources, or I'll be dead for sure. Without hesitation, I hit download. The file was astonishingly small, barely 100 kilobytes, and installed in an instant. I tap to open the game, and the screen goes pitch black, pixelated text emerging slowly. Asterisk Dark Sanctuary star. Chilling, eerie music slithers into my ears. A flood of system notifications follows. You have become a player of Dark Sanctuary. Scanning your physical data. Scan complete. Awakening talent. Talent awakened. You have obtained the talent. Hand of Synthesis. Issuing starting sanctuary. Please select the location for construction. Underground, I reply. Would you like to enter the game now? Yes. The screen is swallowed by darkness once more before a sliver of dim light breaks through. On screen is a small, cramped room containing only a bed, a desk with a flickering candle, and a set of sparse furniture. The light is so feeble that it seems as if it could be extinguished at any moment. The top right corner of the screen is labeled Sanctuary. In the room stands a pixelated character representing me. The top left corner shows 2 buttons, Attributes and Inventory. I rub my hands together with excitement and tap on the Attributes panel. Name, by Yi. Extraordinary class, none. Level, none. Equipment, none. Talent, Hand of Synthesis, capable of synthesizing any item. 3 uses per day, upgradable. Note, if your character dies, you may re-enter the game the next day. Holy, this talent is OP. I mutter, a spark of exhilaration igniting in my eyes. Previously, I had no talent, nothing but envy for the stories told by others. This time, armed with a game-breaking ability and a head start over everyone else, I'm absolutely certain I'll survive the apocalypse and thrive in this cursed world. The only downside is the daily limit of 3 uses, but the fact it can be upgraded hints at endless potential. Wasting no time, I prepare to set out and explore. My sanctuary is underground, with the exit leading up through a vertical ladder. I maneuver my character to climb the ladder, emerging onto a world shrouded in thick, swirling black mist. This place is a mosaic of fragments from countless worlds devoured by the Eldritch God. Opportunities lie in wait, but so do countless perils. The black mist conceals treasure chests, the earths will gifting players with rewards to brave the future. After the apocalypse begins, these rewards would manifest in the real world, and many relied on them to survive the early hellish years. My first goal is clear: find a weapon. Only then can I press forward in search of treasures. Searching the area. You picked up a wooden stick. You picked up a stone. You combined wooden stick and stone and created ironwood club. Description: made from a special ironwood material, it is extremely sturdy and delivers powerful strikes. Not bad. I immediately equipped the ironwood club. With only 2 synthesis attempts left, I decided to save them for now and push deeper into the black mist. Not long after, a familiar growl came from my phone. A corruptor. This is the most common low-tier monster in the Dark Wasteland. A mutated humanoid creature, corrupted and zombie-like, capable of spewing corrosive acid. The fog was too thick, obscuring my vision. I had to move my character slowly and carefully. The next second, a corruptor lunged out of the mist, spraying a blob of green liquid as it opened its mouth. I was prepared, quickly dodging to the side and countering with a heavy swing of my club. BM, the corruptor's head exploded on impact. You killed a corruptor. Would you like to collect materials? Gathering allows you to harvest materials from monster corpses. I chose yes. Collection successful. You obtained corroded bone X1 and corrosive venom X1. As expected, just some cheap junk. I grumbled, then suddenly froze mid-thought. Wait, my talent is synthesis. My eyes lit up. To others, these materials are garbage, but for me, not necessarily. Still, with only 2 synthesis attempts left today, I couldn't afford to waste them. I made a quick decision. If I don't enhance my combat abilities early on, I won't even be able to gather resources later. I immediately opened my inventory. Item: corroded bone. Description: a bone with slight corrosive properties taken from a corruptor. Item: corrosive venom. Description: toxic venom extracted from a corruptor, possessing strong corrosive effects. I carefully studied the item descriptions and quickly devised a plan. My talent is powerful, but I can only synthesize twice more today, and each attempt allows just 2 items. I needed to maximize efficiency. I combined the ironwood club with the corrosive venom and clicked synthesize. Synthesis successful. You obtained poisoned ironwood club. Poisoned ironwood club, a sturdy wooden club coated with corrosive poison. Successful hits have a chance to inflict corrosion on enemies. Perfect. I smiled, knowing my combat strength just significantly improved. I continued advancing and diligently collected wood and stones along the way. Shelters could be upgraded infinitely, but upgrades consumed materials. In later stages, even determining a shelter's traits. Early on, I prioritized stockpiling basic resources like iron, wood, and stone. Before long, my inventory was overflowing with nearly 200 units of wood and stone. Suddenly, another corruptor appeared in my line of sight. Dodging its acid attack with ease, I closed the distance and delivered a crushing blow with my club. With a resounding BAM, its head burst apart, instantly killing it. The harvested materials were, once again, nothing valuable. But I kept everything. I knew the game wasn't just about me. There were other players out there. Many wouldn't start with decent weapons. When the time came, I could trade this poisoned ironwood club for resources and quickly snowball my advantage. The rolling mist on the screen grew thicker, restricting visibility to barely a meter around my character. Chilling music mixed with the sound of the wind echoed ominously, and suddenly, a series of growls emerged from deep within the fog. I frowned. That many corruptors? At least a dozen. On a wasteland, it was rare to encounter so many monsters at once. There was only one plausible explanation. There was a cluster of buildings ahead, and everyone there had been corrupted. Rather than retreat, my eyes gleamed with excitement. Buildings mean loot. I controlled my character, cautiously moving forward to investigate. Soon, 3 growling corruptors leaped out and surrounded me. I skillfully avoided their attacks, finding a gap to strike with my club. One went down, followed swiftly by the other two. After a bit more exploration, the silhouette of a ruined village came into view. Just as I expected, places like this often offered a higher chance of finding treasure chests. I sat up straight, ready to scour the area thoroughly. As I entered the village, distant growling echoed from every direction, making it seem as though the entire population had turned into monsters. Carefully advancing, I focused on scavenging every resource I could find. You picked up wood. You picked up stone. You picked up iron. You picked up iron. You found a corroded iron knife. You found corroded armor. Finally, some quality items. I chuckled to myself, immediately opening my inventory, eyes glued to the corroded iron. Eyes sharper, the blade and armor glimmered in renewed purpose. I set the iron blade aside for now, locking my gaze on the armor. Without hesitation, I used my final synthesis chance. Corroded armor plus iron. The talent skill activated. Corrosion and rust vanished in an instant, revealing armor that gleamed with a fresh, polished shine. You have obtained a set of soldier's armor. Asterisk, description, Imperial Standard Issue armor. Offers strong defense but slightly reduces movement speed. Asterisk. Wasting no time, I equipped it. My on-screen character flashed with white light, now adorned in a sturdy blue and white set of armor as solid as an iron shell. I was beyond satisfied. I now had both weapon and armor, perfect tools to handle the corrupted foes lurking in the village. Unless something much stronger appeared, I could finally move with confidence and take the fight to them. With the armor on, my hesitation vanished. I strode boldly to the heart of the village. The noise of my advance summoned guttural growls and hisses as corrupted enemies converged on me from every direction. Rubbing my hands together, I readied myself for battle. In no time, a swarm of corrupted filled the screen. My character charged forward, smashing heads with relentless, brutal efficiency. One swing, one kill. The armor withstood all their bites and swipes. I only had to dodge their corrosive acid. Not long after, the dozen or so corrupted that had gathered were wiped out. Loot collected. Corroded bone X12, corrosive venom X13. As their decaying bodies faded into nothingness, I resumed my exploration deeper into the village. I entered a wooden house and immediately spotted a wooden chest glowing faintly. It lit up my screen like a beacon. A treasure chest, finally. I eagerly stepped forward and opened it. Soft light spilled out. You opened a wooden chest and obtained Dispelling Lantern. Asterisk, description, the flame of hope burns eternal, dispels surrounding darkness and increases visibility by 1 meter. Asterisk, I couldn't help but grin. While this item didn't boost attack power, its ability to expand my field of vision made it an invaluable tool for staying safe during exploration. In my previous life, this item was so rare you could barely find anyone willing to sell it, even at outrageous prices. To get it so early this time around felt like nothing short of fortune smiling on me. Has being reborn also improved my luck? I promptly equipped it. My character now had a lit lantern dangling from their waist, doubling my visible range. 2 corrupted creatures trying to ambush me instantly appeared within my extended view. I rushed my character forward, dispatching them with 2 easy swings. Continuing my search, I found another wooden chest in a nearby building. The rumors weren't wrong. Clusters of buildings really do have better loot. I opened the chest. You opened a wooden chest and obtained Torn Monster Compendium. Asterisk, description, compiled by ancient mages to resist the invasion of malevolent gods. This book documents information on various dark creatures, though some entries are incomplete. Asterisk, a monster compendium? I pulled it from my inventory and began flipping through its 23 pages. Each page detailed a specific monster with text and illustrations. The very first entry was for the corrupted enemies I'd just fought. Name, corrupted. Asterisk. Asterisk. Description, born from the contamination of humanoid creatures. These weak monsters have a prominent weakness at their heads. They can be killed by ordinary humans wielding basic weapons, but avoid their highly corrosive acid. Asterisk. It went on to explain that the strength of corrupted creatures varied depending on their source of contamination. When orcs or elves fell victim, they transformed into much stronger versions of the creature, though the head remained their Achilles heel. That matches what I already know. I've heard rumors about orc form corrupted, but I've never encountered one myself. I kept flipping through the compendium, skimming over entries for other monsters like ghouls, shriekers, and bloodthirsty crawlers. For most players, this book would be a priceless treasure, but for someone like me, asterisk by ye asterisk, it wasn't particularly useful. I already knew most of what it contained. Then, a thought struck me, and I smacked my thigh. Even if I don't need it, I could easily sell copies to others. Of course, I wasn't planning to sell the original. I'd make duplicates instead, selling them to anyone willing to pay. This could easily turn into a gold mine. After carefully stashing the compendium, I pressed on with my search of the village. Sweeping through the houses, I looted every last corner, though my primary haul was just basic materials. My inventory was now packed with over 1,000 units each of wood and stone. I'd grabbed everything I could, figuring there's no such thing as too many resources. If it weren't for the risk of drawing strong monsters with the noise, I'd have dismantled the entire village for parts by now. Standing at the entrance to the village church, I stared at the large double doors, mumbling to myself, could there be runes inside? My eyes shimmered with anticipation. These worlds, shrouded in darkness and chaos, had once been imbued with extraordinary powers. Churches, in particular, often housed ancient methods of cultivation or training. In games, these were typically translated into runes, items that could immediately grant players incredible new abilities. Pushing the doors open, I cautiously stepped inside. To my shock, a pale figure stood motionless in the courtyard, its hollow gaze fixed directly on me. I barely had a moment to react before the figure unleashed a piercing, bone-chilling shriek. Even from outside the screen, the sound stabbed straight into me. A wave of dizziness hit me. The next second, my character's head exploded right before my eyes. "While you are dead," blood-red letters slammed onto the pitch-black screen. My face turned grim. Damn it, why the hell is there a screecher in the church? Screechers kill using sound waves. They normally roam the wilderness. I never expected one to be lying in ambush inside the church, waiting to mess people up. The more I thought about it, the more I regretted it. Losing the character today meant I couldn't log back into the game. Cursing my bad luck, I closed the game entirely. I glanced at the time. It was already 2 a.m. I hadn't even noticed I'd been playing for 5 or 6 hours straight. Realizing how heavy my head felt, I quickly washed up and crashed into bed, ready to recharge and get back at it tomorrow. This sleep was on another level, peaceful and sound, unlike in my last life where I was constantly jolted awake in the middle of the night, always panicking over whether monsters were closing in on the shelter. By 10 a.m., I groggily rubbed my eyes, grabbed my phone, and got up to wash my face. After ordering some delivery, I plopped down in front of my computer and started searching for a site called the Nameless Forum. This was an official player community set up by the game developers. Dark Sanctuary was initially discovered and reported by the officials themselves. They went on to establish a dedicated department and built this forum. As soon as you clicked into the forum, your IP address would immediately be tracked, followed by a few pop-up questions to verify if you were indeed a player. I already knew about this from my last life, so it didn't surprise me or make me nervous in the least. On the surface, the forum was a place for players to exchange intel, but in reality, it was just the authorities' way of recruiting players and verifying identities, making sure no one abused their in-game powers to stir up trouble. If anyone caused problems, once their identity was confirmed, it'd be a piece of cake to track them down. Since I wasn't planning on causing a scene, I really didn't care. I typed a few keywords and hit enter. The forum's homepage loaded swiftly. Squinting as I scanned the screen, I muttered under my breath. So, I wasn't part of the first wave of players after all. Turns out, there were players who had been in the game both domestically and internationally way before me, and their numbers were only growing. The forum consisted of 3 sections: help, discussions, and trading. By default, I was dropped into the discussions section, and man, the posts were piling up. Titles like, "Help, how do you beat a corruptor? It's impossible for me. Does anyone know who created this game? I got killed the moment I stepped out of the shelter. This game is so brutal. Anyone want to share some survival tips? Penguin Corporation is recruiting players. Great benefits, salaries in the millions, and we'll even find you a spouse. OMG, I've hit the jackpot. I just got a rune." That last post made my face change instantly. I clicked into it right away. Inside was a screenshot of a rune labeled Basic Class Rune, Warrior. Description: using this grants you the extraordinary base class, Warrior, along with its corresponding skills, talents, and passive bonuses. My eyelid twitched. Someone's already looted a class rune? With that, they now had access to superhuman abilities. Even a screecher wouldn't pose a threat anymore. I ground my teeth in jealousy and cursed under my breath. Damn those lucky Europeans. Scrolling down, the comments section was flooded with purchase offers, with some even throwing out a price tag of 200 million. But the original poster flatly refused. No surprise there. A single rune could exponentially boost one's combat capabilities. It was practically a golden ticket to staying ahead. No one would sell that kind of lifeline for some cash. Pulling back from the screen, I grabbed my phone and opened the game. After the loading screen, my shelter reappeared. In this game, your character respawns in the shelter the day after dying. I opened my inventory and found the monster compendium. After taking a screenshot, I selected Materialize. A physical, old, musty book manifested in thin air, its scent reeking of age and mildew. A grin spread across my face. I may not have a rune, but this baby can still make me some quick cash. Without hesitation, I posted on the forum. I included the compendium's description along with the list of monsters available, pricing it at $1,000 per copy. At first glance, that price might seem steep, but it was actually reasonable. Items from the game could be brought into the real world, but real-world currency couldn't be taken into the game. This made cashing out straightforward for players like me. Especially for those representing corporations, they didn't lack money, they lacked gear. Weapons, for instance, easily sold for tens of thousands. The armor I forged yesterday, it would probably fetch over $10,000 if I threw it onto the market. At $1,000 a pop, it'd sting for these buyers, sure, but their hands? Oh, they'd move faster than their minds. Sure enough, the moment I posted, the replies flooded in. Holy, this is a thing. If I'd known earlier, I wouldn't have died yesterday. $1,000? That's way too cheap. I already paid. Hurry up and send me the goods. OP's based in Shanghai. Same here. Deliver it ASAP. I can't wait to get my hands on it. The game had me going on a killing spree. Wait, they even have info on the Forest Banshee? Alright, I'll buy it. Ugh. Why do you all get the good stuff while I'm stuck with moldy food? Count yourself lucky, buddy. I've been playing for 2 days and all I've found is rocks and wood. Scrolling through the comments, I couldn't help but smile. See, I told you, the price is absolutely worth it. Just then, the private message icon at the top right of my screen blinked. Someone had DM'd me. I clicked it open and saw a message from an ID named Dexiao. Dexiao? My eyes narrowed as I instantly guessed this person wasn't just anyone. Dexiao asterisk. Hey, does your monster compendium really contain weaknesses and detailed intel on monsters? By E asterisk, it does. Dexiao asterisk. Alright, I want a copy. I've already sent you the money. No need to deliver it to me, I'll stop by to pick it up myself. Oh, and I'll register your identity while I'm at it. Cool. By E asterisk works for me. Dexiao asterisk. I'm guessing you already know who I am. By E asterisk, your ID kinda makes it obvious. Dexiao asterisk, alright. See you soon. I closed the forum with a grin, just as my breakfast delivery arrived. After eating, I went out to buy a printer and some supplies, then got to work duplicating the monster compendium. It wasn't a massive document, just 23 pages, so printing was quick. Still, I didn't make too many copies, just about 100. This kind of information doesn't stay hidden for long. Once it spreads, its value will plummet. I needed to cash in while it was still worth something. 1,000,000 yuan would be more than enough for me for now. I was going to use that money to stockpile supplies in preparation for the looming apocalypse. Sure, currently, real-world items couldn't be brought into the game. But once the darkness descends, the rules governing our world will change drastically. A nightmarish reality, monsters, and disasters will ravage the land. From my prior life, I remember the first calamity being an unforgiving, months-long deep freeze. The kind of cold that chills your bones to the point of them cracking. People died, even while bundled in 5 layers of blankets by a fire, with no way to fight off the cold. Going outside for food? Practically suicide. The only chance for survival was to stockpile provisions up front. By noon, I glanced at the forum again. 27 orders had already rolled in, fully paid. Some buyers were here in Shanghai, others were in nearby cities. I didn't bother delivering them one by one. Instead, I brought everything to a courier service, sent them all out at once, and notified the buyers. But when I got home, two people were waiting for me by my door. One man and one woman. The man was wearing a suit and looked like your average overworked office worker, balding and all. The woman, however, was young and striking, dressed in a crisp white casual outfit. She smiled and approached me first. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Bai Yi," she said with a friendly tone. "And you are?" Though I had my suspicions, I asked anyway. The woman introduced herself. "I'm An I Meng, and this is Wang Jiangwo. We're members of the Night Watchers Shanghai branch. I was the one who met you this morning. My ID is Xia." "Ah, so it was them." I nodded. "You're here to pick up the monster compendium, right?" "I've already got it ready. Let me grab it for you." "Not just yet," Wang Jiangwo said, raising a hand to stop me. His smile was polite, but carried an unmistakable pressure. "The compendium is one thing, but we also need to discuss two matters with you." "Come inside," I offered. After pouring them tea, I locked eyes with Wang Jiangwo. "What two matters?" Wang Jiangwo set his cup down. "First, the game, but you probably already know it's unusual. We need to confirm your identity and put it on file." He paused, his tone serious. "As long as you don't engage in anything illegal, there won't be any issues." "Got it. I'll cooperate." I was prepared for this, so I directly handed over my personal documents for them to photograph and record. Once the paperwork was done, Wang Jiangwo exchanged a silent glance with An I Meng. Then An I Meng took a deep breath and said, "The second matter." I sipped my tea quietly, waiting for her to continue. She didn't beat around the bush. "We'd like to formally invite you to join the Night Watchers and serve the government." I was just about to turn her down when she quickly added, "Don't be so quick to say no. Hear me out first." I gestured for her to go on. "If you join, the government will provide you with a very useful weapon for the early stages, for free," she explained earnestly. "The organization also offers special rewards from within the game. There are even extraordinary items that can be exchanged using contribution points. We won't restrict your personal freedom," she assured me. "Plus, there's decent pay and significant benefits." So what do you think? In truth, I was well aware of the way things worked here in Xia. The government rarely acted recklessly. As long as you followed the law, you could live your life as you pleased. And honestly, if I did join, the perks would definitely be no joke. Will fail. But I still rejected it on the spot. I knew that darkness and disasters would descend soon. When that happens, joining the officials would mean being assigned to carry out tasks everywhere. While safety would be guaranteed, the price would be having my hands tied. Having lived a second life and coming back with extraordinary talent, I wanted to seize opportunities on my own terms. An I Meng and Wang Jiangwo's expressions darkened. An I Meng pressed further. "Can you tell us why?" I smiled slightly. "No special reason. I just don't like being restricted in any form." Then I added, "However, if the officials truly need assistance in the future, I'm happy to help." The two nodded, took the monster index, and quickly left. I ordered takeout, finished lunch, and got started on today's game. By 1 p.m., the AC was blowing cool air as I lay on my bed and launched the game. Familiar music began playing, and the sanctuary screen appeared. I controlled my character to enter a private room. Inside, a metallic orb floated in midair, the core of the sanctuary. Details appeared. Owner, Bai Yi. Area, 100 square meters. Upgrade level, 0. Evolution level, 0. Earthquake resistance, 1. Soundproofing, 1. Insulation, 1. Comfort, 1. Upgrade requirements. Wood X 1000, Stone X 1000, Iron X 100. I glanced at my inventory. The materials were all there. I poured everything into the core and clicked upgrade. A burst of white light flooded the entire screen and slowly receded after 1 minute. The sanctuary had a brand new look. The dirt walls were replaced by stone, and the flooring and ceiling were now wooden structures. The area had doubled in size, leaving the extra space empty, waiting for me to arrange it. Earthquake resistance, soundproofing, insulation, comfort, +1. There were no entries like anti-demonic or absolute null, but that was expected. Those only appeared with evolution. I cleared out my inventory, stacked all the materials inside the sanctuary, and took my character outside. My gaze turned cold immediately. I need to deal with that screecher first. Since a screecher was lingering in the church, there was a great chance it was guarding something valuable. Even if it wasn't, killing it would yield rare materials, totally worth the effort. Yesterday's failure was entirely due to a lack of preparation. This time, I was fully confident. In my last life, I had fought plenty of screechers. I knew exactly how to handle them. After returning to the sanctuary, I retraced my steps from memory. Soon enough, I arrived at the abandoned village. Along the way, a few corruptors wandered aimlessly but were smashed effortlessly by me, adding some materials to my pile as a bonus. As I stepped into the village, I heard a familiar screeching sound through my phone. The ones I cleared out yesterday have regrouped. I didn't bother hiding. My character wielded a venom-infused wooden club and pushed forward, smashing each enemy like watermelons. One hit, one down. Before long, I stood before the church once again. It was eerily silent, just like yesterday. This time, I was much more cautious. Hugging the walls, I gently pushed the door open without making much noise. Through the crack, I spotted the screecher floating inside. It was pale gray all over, its face replaced by a giant gaping maw filled with fangs, bizarre and chilling. It wasn't a creature corrupted by pollution, but a monster born of pure darkness. Its deadliest weapon was its shriek, which could shatter flesh and severely damage the mind. However, dealing with it was absurdly simple. Block your ears. I opened my inventory, ripped apart some old fabric I had picked up, and selected stuff into ears. With 2 bunches of cloth in my character's ears, I felt much calmer, walking straight into the church. The screecher immediately opened its massive mouth and let out its whine. The cloth didn't completely block the sound. The sharp noise still drilled into my ears, making my scalp tingle, but it was tolerable. Seizing the moment, I charged forward and swung my club down hard on its head. The screecher staggered but remained standing. It was clearly more durable than the corruptors. I didn't panic, landing a second blow right after. This time, the screecher collapsed to the ground, lifeless. Would you like to collect loot? I chose yes. Collection successful. You obtained screecher hide. Not bad. I remembered screechers could also drop hearts. Both materials were quite handy. However, I hadn't unlocked the recipe for heart synthesis yet. After confirming there were no other enemies in the church, I began scavenging for supplies. Soon, beneath the statue in the main hall, I found something. Item: holy water. Description: removes curses from the body and is effective against evil. The malevolent creature possessed a certain degree of lethality. Well, this is a real find, I muttered to myself. The divine water was contained in a golden bottle placed before the sacred statue. There was about 200 milliliters in total. Not too much, not too little. I quickly took the bottle of divine water, paused for a moment, then brought up my inventory and prepared for a crafting session. Iron plus corroded iron dagger. Sure, a wooden stick could work, but compared to iron tools, the gap was significant. If I'd had a decent blade earlier, I could have taken down the screecher in one slash. It would have never gotten a chance to make a second move. Today's crafting attempts had just refreshed, so I decided I'd make a weapon first. The toxic wooden stick could wait for another day. I'd save it for the right kind of enemy or possibly sell it in a trade later on. Activating my talent, I tapped the craft button. The 2 items instantly fused, and a brand new iron blade materialized before me. Crafting successful. You have obtained iron blade. Iron blade. Description: a sharp weapon forged with care. I equipped the iron blade immediately, and the wooden stick in my hand was replaced by a long, fearsome sword. Just one glance at it gave off an air of danger and deadly precision. Continuing my search in the abandoned church, I found that most of the usable items had already decayed due to the passage of time. Only some basic materials were left. Roughly 6 or 7 minutes into my scavenging, I finally hit the jackpot. Tucked away in a corner on the 2nd floor was a black iron chest glimmering faintly with a metallic shine. Without hesitation, I rushed over and lifted the lid. You have opened the black iron chest and obtained basic rune of profession, Mage. A soft glow flashed briefly, and I froze in disbelief before breaking into a grin of sheer excitement. A profession rune? This morning, I was cursing someone else's luck for being an RNG god, and now look at me. I'm the real deal. I swiftly picked up the rune, and its item details popped up immediately. Basic profession rune, Mage. Description: grants the transcendent basic profession Mage. along with corresponding specializations, talents, and passive abilities upon use. Without a shred of doubt, I tapped use. The rune disintegrated into light and flowed into my body, triggering a cascade of system notifications. You have obtained the profession, Mage. You have gained the Mage talent, Meditation. You have acquired the Mage specialization, Element Affinity. You have unlocked the Mage basic skill, Fireball. A foreign energy surged within me as the notifications rang out, and a smirk tugged at the corner of my lips. Supernatural power. In this life, I've obtained it so quickly. In my past life, it had taken me 3 months after the world descended into darkness and an absurd amount of resources just to obtain a single mage rune. But now, here it was, handed to me on a silver platter on only the second day. The rune brought with it magic and element affinity. Without the latter, accessing elemental spells would be impossible. Meditation, on the other hand, allowed me to recover mana rapidly during moments of rest. The real game changer, however, was Fireball, a genuine supernatural ability. With it, I no longer had to rely solely on brute force in my explorations. What's more, the rune's enhancements didn't just apply in-game. My physical body in the real world also experienced a synchronized boost. My physique improved, and my mental strength practically doubled on the spot. I spent a moment familiarizing myself with my newfound abilities before pulling up my stats panel. Name: Bai Yi. Supernatural sequence: Mage. Level 1. Skills: Fireball. Talent: Meditation. Specialization: Element Affinity. Equipped weapon: Iron Blade. Unique talent: Hand of Synthesis. 3 uses daily, upgradable. Perfect. My stats had undergone a significant transformation, reaching level 1. However, further upgrades would require a profession advancement, which in turn demanded higher-grade runes. Frost Mage, Flame Mage, Spellblade. There were over a dozen advancement paths I knew of, but acquiring advanced runes of that caliber would be extremely challenging in the short term. A thought crossed my mind as I stroked my chin, a glint of curiosity in my eyes. Could my crafting talent potentially synthesize higher-tier profession runes directly? The catch was that crafting required base profession runes as materials. For now, I had no means to test this idea and set it aside for later. Closing the stats panel, I led my character out of the church. The village had been thoroughly scavenged, so I decided to head out in a new direction for further exploration. Still, I was hesitant to venture too far. The farther I went, the more I strayed from the safety of the sanctuary, and making the round trip could become a real hassle. With limited inventory space, I had to frequently return and clear out my stockpile. But for now, my character stepped into the churning mist, onward with resolute steps. The fog swirled like restless ocean waves, and the rustling of leaves filled the air as the wind swept through. Suddenly, a guttural roar broke the silence. A corroder lunged out from the haze, its jaws snapping and spewing acidic liquid. I dodged instinctively, pivoting my body away before immediately launching a fireball in counterattack. With a loud explosion, the corroder was blasted into a pile of charred remains. I could feel the mana in my body depleting slightly as I cast the spell. It's roughly 1/5. In other words, using skills in the game consumes my real-world mana. The game character is essentially me, but thankfully, dying in the game doesn't mean I actually die in real life. Calculating it this way, I can release Fireball up to 5 times in a row at most. That should be enough. Fireball is quite powerful. It's strong enough to one-shot both Corruptors and Screamers. Then, an idea suddenly hit me. Can skills be combined? I opened the stats menu, navigated to the skill panel, and a notification popped up. Combination available. I froze for a second, then burst out laughing in excitement. It's actually possible. If the power could stack, my entire combat strategy would change. I clicked on Combine right away and selected the materials without hesitation. Holy Water. While Corrosive Venom could be a substitute, Holy Water was clearly more stable and much stronger. I took a deep breath and threw Fireball and Holy Water together. Combination successful. Fireball has been consumed. You have acquired a new skill, Divine Flame. Divine Flame contains holy fire. Its high temperatures are effective against dark and evil entities and also provide slight healing effects. Reading through the skill description, I couldn't hold back a grin. I immediately gave it a try. My character conjured a golden white flame in the palm of its hand. Slithering like a fiery serpent, it darted toward a nearby tree. In just a second or two, the tree turned into ash. The sheer power of it left me momentarily stunned. But the next moment, my expression darkened. The mana cost is way too high. My mana was draining absurdly fast, twice as much as Fireball. At this rate, I can only cast Divine Flame twice at most. If I push myself, I might manage a third cast, but I'd probably pass out right after. While the increased power was a huge plus, it also served as a wake-up call. I need to think twice before randomly combining skills from now on. I couldn't afford to keep draining my mana like this. Shaking my head, I took a deep breath, put my phone down, and started meditating to recover my mana. After about half an hour, I felt my mana was back to normal and resumed exploring. When I encountered new corruptors, I refused to waste my limited Divine Flame charges. Instead, I switched to my Iron Sword, slicing them down one by one before collecting resources. After venturing forward for a while, a giant mountain loomed in front of me. The forest at its base was dense, with ancient trees rising sky-high. But everything was shrouded in darkness, exuding an eerie, unsettling vibe. I hesitated for a moment, then had my character step into the woods. The very next second, a roar erupted as a shadow darted toward me. I quickly sidestepped and got a good look. It was a wild boar. But not just any wild boar, it had been corrupted. Its size was ridiculously large, its black fur like armor, and its tusks looked deadly. The forest in this dark region was far more treacherous than the areas I had explored outside. Realizing the danger, I focused all my attention on controlling my character. The boar charged forward like a tank. I couldn't afford to meet its attack head-on, so I dodged to the side and seized the opening to take a swing with my sword. Clang! Sparks flew. My iron sword was almost dented, yet I didn't even leave a scratch on the wild boar. Damn, this thing's tough. My heart sank. I quickly withdrew the blade, afraid it would break if I kept using it recklessly. The wild boar roared, having completely lost its sanity after being corrupted. It charged at me again. Instead of retreating further, I stepped forward and cast Divine Flame at point-blank range. Golden white fire engulfed the boar instantly. It let out a piercing scream and thrashed violently, but soon succumbed to the flames and burned to death. The pungent scent of charred meat filled the air. I walked over and clicked Collect. Collection successful. You have obtained Corrupted Beast Hide, X1, Sharp Boar Tusk, X2, Corrupted Beast Bone, X3. Not bad. These materials could be useful for crafting, and if I ever encountered a blacksmith, I could use them to forge equipment. The more, the better. I've always been the type to hoard loot. Whenever I played open-world games, I'd pick up anything and everything. This game was no exception. After resting for a bit, I continued my trek deeper into the mountains. The further I ventured, the stronger the monsters became. Nearly all of them were corrupted beasts, much tougher to deal with than corruptors. Some had hides so thick that my sword couldn't even scratch them, leaving me no choice but to rely on Divine Flame. But I could only use Divine Flame 3 times at most before running out of mana and being forced to log off and rest. This meant I had to be extra cautious. Still, caution wasn't enough to avoid trouble when monsters came looking for me instead. After walking a short distance, I was suddenly blocked by a gigantic corrupted serpent. Its black scales shimmered like armor, as though it were wrapped in a layer of obsidian. I swung my sword at it, but sparks flew uselessly off its tough scales. They were outrageously durable. Left with no other option, I used Divine Flame again to burn it to death. Collection successful. You have obtained Corrupted Beast Hide, X1. I stared at the system notification and exhaled deeply, feeling a bit as though my face had white. The magic depletion was too severe. I had no choice but to log out of the game, sitting cross-legged on my bed to meditate and recover. It took a full 30 minutes for my magic to replenish. Only then did I realize it was already dark outside. 6 o'clock? That quick. I glanced at the time and was startled. I had been completely engrossed, to the point where it felt like time had been stolen. I got up and headed out to grab something to eat. After dinner, I bought a bunch of supplies to stockpile at home. Instant noodles, spicy snacks, canned goods, rice, and cooking essentials like oil, salt, soy sauce, and vinegar. I didn't buy too much at once, since I didn't want to draw attention. My plan was to gradually replenish a bit more each day. By the time I got home, it was already 8 p.m. Instead of jumping back into the game right away, I lay down on my bed, scrolling through the nameless forum. Today it was noticeably livelier than yesterday. Seems like a lot of new players joined. The forum was flooded with new posts, mostly filled with various updates and information. Pinned, announcement, offline trading market opens in Shanghai on July 3rd. Just discovered this game today. It's insane. I thought it was some kind of cheat code just for me. Turns out everyone can play it. Finally found the community. Please, someone share a guide. I beg you. Freebies alert. Join the official group and get a weapon to help you explore easier. Has anyone else run into other races in this game? I found kobolds and wonder if I can communicate with them. The forum was popping, but the post titled, Offline Trading Market Opens in Shanghai on July 3rd, stood out the most. I clicked on it out of curiosity and immediately felt excited. Turns out the game's officials were directly organizing an offline trading event. This was great news for me. With official oversight, I wouldn't have to worry about shady deals or scams. After all, who knows what kind of dark side human nature might reveal in a game that grants supernatural powers. Having some sort of authority watching over things at least gave a sense of security. More importantly, it was my first chance to meet and trade with other players face to face. The event was set for tomorrow. It would take place in the outskirts, remote, but understandable. Letting regular people find out about this would only cause chaos. Holding the event farther out was likely to prevent any accidents. I also clicked into the post about running into kobolds. The original poster shared how, on their first day in the game, they spawned in a mountain area and stumbled upon a kobold camp. Too scared to approach, they decided to come to the forum to ask for advice. The comment section was buzzing with debates. Some suggested sneaking in and raiding the camp. Others recommended spying from a safe distance, while a few advised just steering clear altogether. But reading about it made me a little envious. Kobolds might not be powerful, but they're a treasure trove species. They love shiny objects, are great miners, and their sharp noses can even sniff out or veins. Simply finding a kobold nest means there's likely some sort of mineral deposit nearby. And even if there isn't, they're bound to have a stash of valuable items, iron, copper, and other materials that are crucial early game resources, especially for upgrading shelters. Too bad I haven't run across them myself. If I had, my resource problems would have been cut in half. After scrolling through the forum for a while, I felt mentally recharged and immediately logged back into the game to continue exploring. The game loaded into an eerie, dark environment. The only light came from a faint glow around my character, pushing back the surrounding black fog. Animal roars echoed faintly from the forest, while the sound of the wind whispered like ghostly cries, sending chills down my spine. Carefully, I maneuvered my character, proceeding cautiously through the dense forest. This time, I didn't encounter any corrupted beasts. It was unusually quiet, too quiet, but at least it let me breathe a little easier. With my current strength, if I ran into a corrupted beast, regular attacks wouldn't work on it. I'd have to rely on skills, which can only be used 2 or 3 times before my magic is depleted. After that, I'd have to log off to replenish again, definitely a situation I wanted to avoid. Then, my hand suddenly froze, halting my character's movements. I tilted my head slightly, straining to hear. In the distance, there was noise, a faint, almost imperceptible sound of something crashing and tearing. My heart sank. Could it be monsters fighting? I hesitated for a moment, but curiosity won out. I decided to move closer and see what was happening. Following the source of the sound, I stealthily made my way toward the commotion. Before long, I reached the scene, and what I saw made my pupils contract in shock. 2 massive beasts were locked in a fierce battle. One of them was a lion with blood-red eyes. The other was a strong, muscular white tiger. But what truly shocked me was the look in the white tiger's eyes. It still seemed incredibly clear and intelligent, completely untainted by corruption. Just then, a notification popped up on the screen. You have encountered a sentient being for the first time. Voice chat has been unlocked. Players can now communicate directly with in-game sentient beings through speech. I glanced at the message briefly before refocusing on the fight unfolding in front of me, keeping my full attention on the scene. The next moment, the white tiger let out a deafening roar, opening its jaws wide. A blast of bone-chilling frost burst from the great mouth, and in an instant, the blood lion was frozen solid into an ice sculpture. My face darkened completely. This white tiger wasn't any ordinary beast. It was a transcendent-level creature. Thankfully, I hadn't recklessly revealed myself. Should it discover me, I wasn't entirely certain I could escape. Cracks began forming on the ice statue, accompanied by a series of sharp cracking sounds. With a thunderous crash, the ice shattered, and the blood lion roared as it broke free. In a flash, it lunged at the white tiger, swiping a massive paw and slamming the tiger into the air. The blood lion opened its jaws, where a swirling red glow rapidly gathered in its throat. Moments later, it unleashed a searing blast of fire. I was momentarily stunned. Who would have thought this blood lion had extraordinary powers too? But soon, excitement replaced my initial shock. Two transcendent beasts engaged in a life-or-death battle? Perfect. I could swoop in and reap the spoils. Whenever a transcendent creature is harvested, rare materials are guaranteed to drop. With my innate ability, I might even manage to craft 2 pieces of powerful gear all at once. Still, I remained vigilant. Encountering 2 extraordinary creatures in the wild like this meant my exploration of the mountain needed to proceed with extra caution. Suppressing my inner excitement, I stayed hidden, continuing to watch the battle unfold. The flames rushed forward like tidal waves, but the white tiger swiftly recovered, exhaling torrents of frost to counterattack. The blood lion was clearly at a disadvantage. Its flames were gradually overwhelmed and snuffed out by the encroaching cold. Once again, the lion was frozen into an ice sculpture. The white tiger charged forward, raising a paw and bringing it down with a mighty crack. The frozen blood lion shattered into pieces, utterly destroyed. Blood and ice fragments scattered across the ground. But the white tiger didn't leave. Instead, it sharply turned its head, its gaze locking onto where I was hiding. It let out a warning growl, a guttural sound that sent a shiver down my spine. My heart sank. I'd been discovered. As the tiger's maw began to frost over, preparing to release another icy blast, I clenched my teeth and stepped out of hiding. Hey, big guy, how about you hold off on that frost breath? I promise I mean no harm. The tiger's gaze flickered with something almost human-like. Curiosity? Surprise? Perhaps it hadn't seen a conscious human in quite some time. Sensing my lack of hostility, it lowered its head and dispersed the frost forming in its mouth. But then, with a heavy thud, it collapsed onto the ground, panting heavily and letting out low whines of pain. Only then did I notice the large, gaping wound across its abdomen. Blood was pouring from the gash, forming slick pools beneath its body. In a world as desolate and corrupted as this one, finding medicinal herbs was next to impossible. Licking its wounds wouldn't stop the bleeding. It'd only stall the inevitable. After some internal deliberation, I made my decision. Steeling myself, I took a cautious step toward the tiger. Immediately, it raised its head, snarling to warn me not to come any closer. I halted and explained, "If you don't treat that wound, you'll die. Trust me just this once. I can heal you." I wasn't motivated by pure kindness. My intent was to tame this uncorrupted, transcendent white tiger, a rare prize, indeed. To earn its trust, I raised my hand and summoned the divine flames of my sacred blaze. While not searingly hot, the flames radiated an undeniable holy aura. The tiger hesitated for a moment, but eventually gave a small nod. It rolled over onto its side, exposing the wound for me. Without wasting any time, I pressed my hands to the injury and cast my healing spell. Under the glow of divine light, the wound began to close at a visibly rapid pace. Meanwhile, I could feel my strength rapidly draining. My complexion turned pale as I poured more energy into the spell. At long last, the tiger's wounds were fully healed. I immediately withdrew the sacred blaze. Gasping for breath, I wiped the cold sweat from my face. This spell? It's such a drain on mana. In just that brief moment, most of my magical energy had been completely used up. The white tiger lowered its head, resuming the natural act of licking its now-healed wounds. I didn't bother it further. Instead, I turned my focus to the blood lion's mangled remains, beginning to harvest materials. Harvest successful. Contaminated flame lion hide X1, fire crystal X1. I opened my inventory to examine the items. The hide was perfect for insulation, while the fire crystal was the core material of the flame lion, something invaluable. As I started mentally drafting plans for crafting, a low growl startled me from behind. At some point, the white tiger had crept up behind me, letting out a low rumble. My heart skipped a beat. I thought for sure it was about to attack me. Hey, big guy, I just saved you. Don't repay me by turning me into dinner, okay? The tiger rolled its eyes, a surprisingly expressive gesture for a beast of its kind, before crouching low, lowering itself as if inviting me on its back. You're letting me ride you? Growl. It rumbled in confirmation. Well, if you insist. But no biting later, deal? Swallowing hard, I climbed onto its back cautiously. With a powerful roar, the tiger dashed forward, carrying me deeper into the mountains. Where exactly are you taking me? I yelled, gripping its fur tightly. The tiger ignored me, its pace quickening as it sped further into the dense wilderness. It moved with remarkable familiarity, navigating the terrain without encountering a single other creature. Before long, it brought me to the entrance of a dark, cold cave. Oh, so this is your lair, I muttered quietly. No sooner had the words left my mouth than the tiger let out a bark-like growl, motioning for me to dismount. I scrambled off its back and followed it inside cautiously. The interior of the cave was dim and chilly. Before I could get my bearings, a tiny tiger cub suddenly bounded out of the shadows, bouncing toward us with playful energy. I lunged directly onto the white tiger. Awkwardly scratching my nose, I said, "Ahem. So you're not the Tiger King, but a tiger mom, huh?" Tiger Mom rolled her eyes, grabbed the cub by the scruff of its neck, and carried it back to the nest, licking its fur. The little cub cried, "Rawr, rawr," with curious wide eyes staring at me. It tried to scamper toward me several times, but Tiger Mom firmly pinned it back each time. Of course, I wasn't just standing around doing nothing. A den of extraordinary beasts. There's got to be something valuable around here, right? I walked around the cave and soon enough found a glowing black iron treasure chest near Tiger Mom's nest. Knew it, treasure chest. I cautiously approached and asked, "Tiger Mom, you still want this chest? If not, I'll just go ahead and open it, okay?" Tiger Mom glanced at it, shook her head, and went back to her cub. She had already tried to open and bite it, but couldn't get through, so she simply gave up on it. Rubbing my hands together eagerly, I pried the chest open. You have opened a black iron treasure chest. Iron times 100, shelter item, synthesis box. Synthesis box? My heart skipped a beat as I quickly read through the description. Synthesis box, effective when placed in a shelter, can consume materials to synthesize various basic structures. I couldn't hold back a grin. Perfect, a tool I absolutely need right now. This was a shelter-specific item that could be used to construct walls, rooms, beds, tables, and chairs. Though it didn't seem glamorous, it would save me an enormous amount of time and effort in planning and building manually. My shelter had just been upgraded, and I now had a large empty space. It's not like I had the time or energy to lay bricks and mix cement myself. With this, as long as I had enough materials, I could construct everything in the blink of an eye. In my previous life, I always dreamed of getting something like this, but luck was never on my side, leaving my shelter in complete disarray. This time, it came into my possession so early, and it even came with a bonus of 100 units of iron. Although the chest didn't yield anything to directly enhance my combat abilities, I was thrilled with the find. I searched the cave thoroughly again, just to confirm. There was only this one treasure chest. A bit disappointed, my gaze eventually landed on Tiger Mom, who was nursing her cub. Suddenly, my motivation was reignited. The chest was great, but Tiger Mom herself was the real treasure here. "Tiger Mom, I'm heading out." Tiger Mom raised her head and let out a low growl, as if asking, "The outside is so dangerous. Do you really want to leave?" I chuckled. "Dangerous, sure, but it's also full of opportunities. Besides, it's time I returned to my own home." Tentatively, I suggested, "How about you come with me?" Tiger Mom shook her head firmly without hesitation. She had her cub. There was no way she'd leave this place. I wasn't discouraged and tried again. "You could bring the little one along too. My place is much safer." Tiger Mom still wouldn't budge. I decided to get a little more serious. "If you end up hurt again, or worse, what will happen to your cub then?" Something in my argument struck a chord. Her eyes flickered with hesitation. Seeing the opening, I pressed further. You've felt it, haven't you? Food is getting harder to find now. Tiger Mom gave a slight nod and growled lowly. The world's mutations had turned everything chaotic. Monsters roamed freely, and much of the food was contaminated. Earlier today, the tiger had ventured out of desperation and nearly lost her life to a blood lion. I unveiled my trump card. Come with me. My place is safe, and your cub can grow up peacefully. Most importantly, I've got food. Meat. Every day. The word meat hit her like a lightning strike. Tiger Mom snapped her head up, clearly tempted. I patted my chest and assured her, follow me, and I'm telling you, you'll have meat to eat every single day. After a brief pause, Tiger Mom finally nodded in agreement, but not without a warning growl, telling me, no funny business. I grinned ear to ear. Tiger Mom and the little cub were mine now. As for where I'd get the promised meat, I wasn't worried in the slightest. Sure, the shelter didn't have food at the moment, and I couldn't bring anything from the real world into this one. But items from the game could be manifested into reality, whether they were inanimate objects or living creatures. It was a flawless plan, if I may say so myself. The wind whistled past as I rode atop Tiger Mom's sturdy back, with the curious little tiger cub peeking around from my arms. Once she agreed to come with me, I shamelessly leapt on her back and left the cave, returning to my sanctuary. Before leaving the mountains, I hesitated and asked Tiger Mom one last question. Tiger Mom, are there any buildings in this mountain range? Growl building. Yeah, like places humans might live. Tiger Mom gave a nod and rumbled. Growl. Yes. Really? Take me there. My eyes lit up. If the previous village was any indication, buildings often held the best treasures. Tiger Mom swiftly shifted direction. Despite her massive size, her speed was like a white streak of lightning. What would have taken me an hour of trekking, she covered within minutes. Bursting through the dense forest, we came face to face with a wooden cabin, at least 100 square meters large. Incredible. There's a place like this tucked away in the mountains. A place. I froze in surprise. The Tiger Mom extended her paw and drew a pattern on the ground, resembling a staff. Did a mage used to live here? I guessed. She nodded, wearing an expression that said, you get it. Suppressing my excitement, I asked, I'm going in to take a look. Want to come along? The Tiger Mom rolled her eyes and let out a low growl, making her stance clear. My cub's still with you, remember? I chuckled, then led the Tiger Mom closer to the wooden cabin. The front of the cabin was eerily quiet, too quiet. I was about to push the door open when she let out a warning growl. I quickly stepped back. There's something inside. She first nodded, then shook her head, and finally nodded again. It clicked for me. There's danger, but not too serious? She gave a satisfied nod. Taking no chances, I pulled her further back, picked up a rock, and hurled it at the wooden door. With a loud bang, the rotted door shattered on impact. In the next instant, a shrill screech pierced the air as a jet of toxic fumes spewed out of the cabin. I dodged just in time, but the Tiger Mom was even quicker. The venomous cloud hit the ground, instantly corroding a deep pit. Narrowing my eyes, I focused on the doorway as a rustling sound began to grow louder. A gigantic spider with black fur crawled out, its body bearing a grotesque human face, blood-red eyes staring unervingly at us. I let out a cold laugh. Oh, it's just a spider fiend. Creatures like this were typically the result of corruption by an evil deity. They were either mutated followers or monsters hatched under twisted circumstances. While it was certainly no weakling, at least I recognized it. Unknown threats were what I truly feared. I knew spider fiends were afraid of fire. And lucky for me, I was proficient in the Divine Flame spell. Still, I had to be careful. The venomous gas earlier was no joke. Even a single hit could likely dissolve me to the bone. Scree! The human-faced spider let out a horrifying shriek as it unleashed another burst of toxic gas. The Tiger Mom and I split off in opposite directions to avoid it. I yelled, "Can you freeze it, Tiger Mom?" With a deafening roar, she swept frost across the ground, instantly spreading a layer of ice. But the spider fiend opened its mouth, blasting a fierce wind that dispersed the cold. Turning its menacing gaze toward me, it spun venom-coated webbing, weaving a massive net aimed directly at me. Furrowing my brow, I summoned the Divine Flame into the shape of a fiery serpent. The moment the web collided with it, the whole thing burned to ash, the fire snake continuing to charge straight for the spider fiend. Sensing mortal danger, the spider fiend scuttled sideways to dodge. I shouted urgently, "Tiger Mom, now freeze it!" She immediately responded, unleashing another wave of frosty air. The spider fiend had just evaded my fire serpent but couldn't escape the icy blast. In a flurry of cracks and creaks, the creature was frozen solid, trapped in an ice sculpture. My eyes lit up. Perfect chance. I channeled my divine flame spell once more, forming a fireball that I hurled at the frozen monstrosity. Boom! The ice sculpture shattered and melted, fire surging through and completely engulfing the spider fiend. It was burned clean through, its body crumpling into a dark, charred heap. The creature never even got the chance to scream. I approached the remains to begin collecting resources. Collection successful. Obtain Spider Fiend Venom X1, Spider Fiend Meat X1, Spider Fiend Webbing X1. The loot wasn't all that impressive, but I didn't mind. There was trading to be done tomorrow, and who knows what I could synthesize with these items. Turning back, I asked, "Tiger Mom, are there any other threats inside?" She sniffed the air twice, then shook her head, signaling it was clear. I grinned. "All right, let's go treasure hunting." She snorted disdainfully but strode confidently into the cabin. I followed close behind. The interior was a mess, with spider webs draped everywhere and the stench of mildew thick in the air. Aside from broken furniture, there wasn't much to see in the main room. Tiger Mom flopped onto the ground, motionless. I tucked the cub back into her arms. "You stay here and keep an eye on this little troublemaker. I'll take a look around." She pinned the wriggling cub down with her paw and began grooming it, ignoring its whiny protests. I pushed open a nearby door and stepped into what seemed to be the mage's old bedroom. The bed looked absurdly soft, and there was a desk and bookshelf nearby. I smirked. "That's a lot of books, not gonna pass this up." With a flick of my hand, I stashed the entire bookshelf and its contents into my inventory. Knowledge was a resource. You never know when you might need it to turn the tide. Rummaging further, I scanned the desk's clutter, piles of documents, some covered in incomprehensible arcane diagrams, others detailing spell theories. None of it looked helpful, so I skimmed a bit before tossing them aside. Opening a drawer, I found 2 small wooden boxes nestled inside. Grinning, I pulled them out and opened them. The sight inside made me beam. Each box held 3 potions, one filled with red liquid, the other with blue. Health potions and mana potions, nice find. I recognized them immediately. The healing potion doesn't do much for me. My divine flame spell can already heal wounds, and these potions are just low-grade ones, way less effective than what I can do myself. What's truly valuable are the mana potions. I'm running low on mana, and that's exactly what I need right now. Even though these are low-grade as well, just one bottle is enough to restore 2/3 of my mana. With 3 of these in hand, I essentially gain 3 extra casts of divine flame. That could be a game changer in critical moments. I carefully put the potions away and continued searching. Before long, I had completely turned the room upside down. Once I was sure there was nothing else to find, I moved to the next room. This wooden cabin had 3 rooms in total, and I entered the second one. This room appeared to be some kind of mage's study. The table was piled high with documents and strange instruments, but they were all damaged beyond use. However, in the corner of the room, there was a wooden chest. I opened it and found a serene flow bracelet inside. This bracelet reduces mana consumption for spells by 1/3. My eyes lit up at the sight of it, and I immediately put it on. Now this is the kind of stuff a mage should have, I muttered, admiring it from every angle. The more I looked at it, the more satisfied I became. But just like the previous room, there wasn't anything else noteworthy here. I had no choice but to head to the final room. The third room looked like a storage space. It was almost completely empty, save for the rotting medicinal herbs strewn on the ground, emitting a nauseating stench. I nearly gagged from the smell, but pushed through and began searching anyway. I didn't find a treasure chest in this room, but I did come across a glowing ring in the corner. It was a damaged flame ring, its magical essence completely drained. To most, it might look like junk, but I immediately took it. I'd just gotten a fire crystal today. This would be the perfect chance to see if I could repair the ring through synthesis. After meticulously going over the room one last time to make sure I hadn't missed anything, I returned to the main hall. Tiger Mama raised her head and let out a low roar, as if asking, "Can we leave now?" "Yeah, We're done here, I replied with a nod. Tiger Mama grabbed her cub in her jaws and handed it to me. Then she crouched down, letting me climb onto her back. Once I was settled, she bolted out of the cabin. The sound of rain pouring down outside hit me immediately. At some point, the light drizzle had turned into a heavy downpour, and it showed no signs of letting up. I frowned. Tiger Mama, head north. She let out a fierce roar and immediately sprinted toward the north. After about 10 minutes, we finally made it back to the shelter. Hearing the storm raging in the game world unsettled me. This world, corrupted by the evil god, had become unpredictable, the weather included. This downpour reminded me of the floods in my previous life. If this really was a precursor to a natural disaster, I could kiss any chance of proper exploration goodbye for the next few days. Pushing away my unease, I brought both the big tiger and her cub inside the shelter. Tiger Mama shook off the water from her fur and let out another growl at me. This time, her intent was clear. Where's the meat you promised? I chuckled. Relax. Let me deal with some things first, and I'll get you the meat. Today's haul had been exceptional. Materials, shelter upgrades, potions, and gear. Everything I needed was here. With only one synthesis attempt left for the day, I decided to gamble on the damaged ring I'd just acquired. I set up the synthesis box inside the shelter and pulled the damaged ring and fire crystal from my inventory. Without hesitation, I hit the synthesis button. A flash of light later, a system notification appeared. Successfully synthesized, flame ring. This flame ring enhances the power of fire elemental spells by 10%. Now this is what I'm talking about. Sliding the ring onto my finger, I instantly felt the fire element within me grow more vibrant. My combat capabilities had just taken another significant leap forward. The rest of the materials would have to wait until my synthesis attempts reset tomorrow. I glanced at Tiger Mama. I'm going to step away for a bit. I'll summon you and your cub in a moment. Don't resist the summoning. She huffed impatiently, her meaning clear. Fine, but make sure I get my meat. I rolled my eyes. Yeah, you'll get it. With that, I logged out of the game. Stretching out my stiff body, I finally noticed it had gotten dark outside. Glancing at the clock, I saw it was already 8 p.m. I grabbed my things and headed out to restock supplies. Knowing I had a massive tiger to take care of, I hauled back over 100 pounds of beef. Just as I stepped back into the house, the skies opened up with a torrential downpour. After putting everything away, I returned to the living room and opened the shelter interface. Selecting Tiger Mama and her cub, a prompt appeared. Summon. Yes. 2 beams of light flashed, and the tigers appeared before me. Tiger Mama cautiously surveyed her surroundings. Once she saw me, she relaxed, but only for a moment. Almost immediately, her gaze locked on the pile of beef I'd brought back, drool dripping from her mouth. All of that's yours. Go ahead and eat, I said, chuckling. She was clearly starving, pouncing on the meat and scarfing it down with gusto. Lowering my voice, I reminded her, don't be loud, or you'll cause trouble. She grumbled a muffled response through her mouthfuls of food, devouring the meat even more fervently, her eyes filled with deep satisfaction. The little tiger cub caught the scent of meat and started yowling, eager to dash over. But I scooped him up into my arms. The little guy squirmed desperately, but I ruffled his head and said, "You're too young for meat. Just wait patiently for your mom to nurse you, okay?" I then gave the tiger cub a bath and, after drying his fur, tossed him onto the sofa. Tiger Mom, fully fed and hydrated, began nursing her cub. My own stomach growled in protest, so I rushed into the kitchen and cooked 3 packs of instant noodles with 2 eggs and a couple of sausages. After satisfying my hunger, I realized it was already 10 p.m. After showering, I collapsed onto the sofa. My head rested against the warmth of Tiger Mom's body, while the little cub nestled in my arms nibbled playfully at my hair. The entire house was filled with a cozy warmth. I pulled out my phone and opened the anonymous forum. By nighttime, the forum was buzzing with more posts, and player activity had noticeably increased. This game is something people might hide from the public, but never from their families. The growing number of players is inevitable. I have no family, no one to share this with, and I've never intended to tell anyone. The authorities are actively suppressing information. If you dare to post, your thread gets deleted, and you might even attract trouble. I just want to live a peaceful, stable life. Having been given a second chance at life, I have only 3 goals. 1. Upgrade my shelter enough to ensure my survival. 2. Recruit allies, expand my territory, and establish my own power. 3. Get stronger, strong enough to become a god. If I can kill the malevolent deities, then I will. If not, I'll lay low and avoid them. Scrolling through the forum, practically every post was grumbling about the relentless rain. The downpour was so heavy that venturing outside was impossible. Some who explored in the rain wound up dead at the hands of monsters. Others saw their shelters flood and were nearly submerged. Reading these posts cast a shadow over my heart. This isn't just a rainstorm, it's a catastrophe. The rain itself can even spawn monsters. What worries me even more is my own shelter. Without a waterproof attribute, if the rain keeps up, water will eventually seep in, and cleaning it all up will be a major hassle. I made up my mind. I need to level up my shelter twice tonight and roll for a waterproof trait. The price for it, though, was going to be another sleepless night. Sighing, I opened the game again. Time to grind. The next day, I woke up in an air-conditioned room. The little tiger cub was still sleeping, but Tiger Mom was grooming her fur, growling at me to hurry up and feed her. You eat way too much. Thinking about yesterday's 100 pounds of beef made my scalp tingle. Right now, I can still buy meat with money, but when the darkness finally descends, food will be the biggest issue. I picked up the tiger cub and placed him back next to Tiger Mom. Then I got up to freshen myself up. I had gamed until 3 or 4 in the morning last night, squeezing out less than 6 hours of sleep, and now my head felt groggy. But I had to head to the official trade market, so I forced myself to push through the exhaustion. After stepping out, I purchased another 100 pounds of beef and grabbed a pork knuckle rice box for myself on the way back. Once home, I ate while opening the game. The sound of rain pelting down filled my ears, even though I was safely inside my shelter. The downpour was torrential. It looks like this is truly a disaster, I muttered. If this keeps up, the outside world will turn into an ocean, and venturing out will be suicidal. For now, I can only scavenge materials near my shelter and continue upgrading it. Last night, I stayed up late to level up the shelter, and at least now I don't need to worry about leaks. Here's the current info on my shelter. It's 300 square feet, upgraded twice, with level 3 soundproofing, insulation, and comfort. Waterproofing, on the other hand, is still at level 1. It includes just a core room, bedroom, living room, and bathroom. With the increased space, the shelter felt more spacious. Almost too much so since I hadn't furnished it yet. Thankfully, the stone walls were replaced with warmer wooden ones, making it more comfortable to live in. One more upgrade, and the shelter could evolve. During this period of catastrophe, I decided to max out the shelter's level and bet on rolling a powerful trait during its evolution. I should carve out another room for Tiger Mom. I need to get proper furniture too. And most importantly, I need a drainage system. If floodwaters hit, everything will be ruined. By the time I finished eating, it was already 1 p.m. The tiger cub had woken up and was nursing from Tiger Mom. I explained to her, Tiger Mom, I have to head out later, and I can't bring you along. I'll teleport you back to yesterday's spot, so don't resist. She growled softly in agreement. I sent both the tiger cub and Tiger Mom back to the shelter and headed out on my own. The suburbs, a vast expanse of abandoned industrial complexes. While the area outside the factories remained desolate, the inside had been transformed by the officials into a semi-underground marketplace, complete with patrolling soldiers in the shadows. Most people wore masks or face coverings, hurriedly coming and going. The interior of the factory bustled with life, its lights illuminating the makeshift market tucked away from the storm. The place was buzzing with noise. Row after row of booths were packed with players trading intensely. Even the game developers themselves had set up a stall, selling in-game items. I had a mask on my face. Just as I arrived at the entrance, a man in a suit stopped me. Before you go in, we need to verify your identity. How do you verify? I asked suspiciously. He pulled out his phone, opening the game app as a demonstration. I immediately understood. Pulling out my own phone, I opened the game and showed it to him. Once he confirmed I was a player, he let me through without any issue. Walking through a long passage, the lively clamor hit me in full force. The place was packed with at least a few hundred players. Some were setting up booths. Others were busy scanning for good deals, while others were quietly negotiating prices. Most surprising of all, several major companies had staff holding signs, actively recruiting players. Familiar giants like Tencent and Huawei were among them. But the more I ventured inside, the stranger I began to feel. This place seems so familiar, I muttered, frowning. I felt like I'd heard about this place before, but I just couldn't put my finger on it. And the creeping sense of unease in the pit of my stomach only got worse. There might be danger here, I thought to myself. The threat could come from the game devs, or something else entirely. But since I was already inside, I figured I wouldn't leave right away. Suppressing my apprehension, I began wandering around the marketplace, taking in the various stalls. Fresh materials, just stripped off a corruptor. Come check it out. Wood and stone on sale. Essential for upgrading shelters. Hurry before it's gone. Buying weapons and items at high prices. Bring your goods over if you're selling. The stalls echoed with vendors shouting out their deals. But the more I looked around, the more disappointed I became. Almost all the booths were selling resources or materials, most of it pretty useless, at least to me. Feeling bored, I decided to rent a booth for myself and start selling stuff instead. The registration desk was just ahead, right next to where the official staff were stationed. As I approached, I spotted a familiar face, In-Ai Ming. "You're here too?" she said, recognizing me immediately despite my mask. There was a hint of surprise in her tone. I nodded. "Just passing through Shanghai. Thought I'd rent a stall and unload some of my items." After completing the registration process, they handed me my booth number, 47. Not in a hurry to leave, I stuck around and chatted with In-Ai Ming for a bit. It turned out she was also responsible for the event's security. Since she had insider info, I decided to probe for some intel. "Since the game launched, have there been any unusual incidents?" In-Ai Ming glanced at me and chuckled. "So that's why you're still here after registering. You're fishing for information, huh?" I laughed awkwardly. "Just curious, that's all." She thought for a moment before replying. "Well, there have been incidents, but it's not something we can casually share with the general public." "I promise I'll keep it to myself," I said earnestly. Rolling her eyes, she added in a lower voice, "This game, it has the power to make people stronger. You understand what that means, right?" I nodded. Whenever someone gains powers beyond a normal humans, it's only natural that greed and malice will follow. In-Ai Ming's voice dropped even more. "It's already chaos overseas. Cults, underground organizations, armed factions, they're all popping up. Some countries are managing to suppress them, but others are caught completely off guard. A lot of civilians have already died. I heard things are especially bad in South Korea. Their conglomerates are practically trying to overthrow the system. They've already started fighting internally, but I don't have the exact details. All in all, except for our country, power struggles between visible and hidden forces are happening basically everywhere. Most countries are trying hard to cover up this information, so the majority of civilians have no idea." Before I could dwell too much on her words, she added, "But don't worry. At least for now, no significant criminal organizations have taken root domestically. Things are still safe. The government isn't targeting players either. As long as you're not doing anything stupid, you'll be treated just like anyone else." Relieved, I laughed. "Good. That's all I needed to hear. Thanks." Whatever chaos was exploding abroad didn't concern me much. As long as things remained stable here, I could quietly bide my time until the day dark abyss descends. "All right, I'll head off now. See you around," I said, waving as I turned to find my booth. In-Ai Ming watched me walk away, shaking her head before returning to her papers. The staff member beside her grinned. "Sister Ming, isn't that the player you and Boss Wong were trying to recruit? Seems cautious, though he's pretty good at digging for information." While most players were consumed with figuring out how to grow stronger, this guy's priority seemed to be sniffing out potential risks. Without even looking up, In-Ai Ming shot back coolly. "Stop worrying about others and get back to work. If you slack off now, you're staying late tonight to finish." The staff member flinched and quickly focused on his tasks again. Meanwhile, I located my booth and took a seat, thinking about what to sell. The poisonous wooden staff was definitely going up for sale, along with some recovery potions. Everything else, that wasn't decided yet, but I still had 3 synthesis attempts left. Might as well take a gamble while I'm here. Pulling out my phone, I entered the game and rummaged through my stash of so-called junk. Soon enough, I locked onto 2 materials, Spider Fiend Silk and Whaling Skin. A synthesis success notification popped up on the screen. "Synthesis complete. You've obtained Screecher's leather armor." My eyes lit up instantly, and I quickly checked its stats. This leather armor not only has great impact resistance, but also boasts elemental defense. Lightweight and durable, it was leagues better than the worn-out armor I was currently wearing. Without hesitation, I equipped my new gear. My old armor disappeared, replaced by a sleek gray-white set of leather armor. Holding my iron sword, I felt an even stronger aura than before. For my second synthesis attempt, I didn't waste a moment. I combined my iron sword with the venom of a spiderling. Notification: synthesis complete. You've obtained the rotten katana. The blade was imbued with a deadly toxin. Just a single cut would cause a wound to rapidly decay. I smirked. This weapon was ruthless. Exactly what I needed to gain another ace in melee combat. Only one synthesis attempt remained. I decided to bide my time, observing the nearby stalls before deciding what to synthesize next. I materialized some items to display at my own stall: a healing potion, the armor I'd just replaced, and a faintly glowing toxic wooden staff. Sitting cross-legged beside my stall, I waited for customers to wander over while tinkering with my in-game shelter. Over the past couple of days, I'd collected quite a bit of wood, stone, and iron. I intended to expand the shelter and build a room for Tiger Mom and her cubs. Standing by the synthesis bench, I browsed the construction options: rooms, beds, chairs, tables, everything I'd need. Lacking any design skills, I settled for a simple 20 square meter room with walls made of a combination of stone and wood. I sighed in disappointment. Without materials like wool, I couldn't make beds or sofas. I'd just have to bring in items from the real world after nightfall or purchase some furniture beforehand. As I was absorbed in upgrading the shelter, a player wandered over to my stall. His name was Jin Peng, just an ordinary office worker. Day after day, he clocked in and out of a dead-end job, a dull, oppressive routine with low pay. But he gritted his teeth, keeping at it because he had no other choice. He wasn't particularly talented, just a forgettable face in a crowd. But yesterday, he discovered a game that ignited a flicker of hope in his monotone life. Its name? Dark Haven. At first, he thought it was just another casual game. But the moment he realized the in-game items could be brought into the real world, he felt like he'd hit the jackpot. He figured this game could change his life. On day one, however, 3 hours of playtime got him nothing. No treasure chests, no big wins. He was killed straight out by a corroder's toxic spray. A quick online search revealed that there were thousands of other players just like him. He wasn't some lucky chosen one, but just another average Joe stumbling across the game. Still, he couldn't let it go. He felt this was his ticket to escape mediocrity. In a rash decision, he even quit his job, choosing to stay home and grind his way to power. Hearing there was an official trading market in Shanghai, he came to check it out. As he browsed stall after stall, he saw blood-stained dolls and razor-sharp swords, but all priced exorbitantly high. Stalls were either demanding tons of in-game resources or outright cash he clearly didn't have. Frustrated, Jun Peng was about to move on when he noticed my stall. Spread before him were odd items: a glowing red potion, a greenish wooden staff, and an armor set so shiny it nearly blinded him. His eyes practically watered from envy. "Why is their gear so good while I can't even take down a corroder?" he muttered to himself. With his current stats, dodging a corroder's toxic spray was already a challenge. Even if he managed that impossible feat, he'd still perish under their relentless attacks. But this armor, if he could wear it, he'd withstand the physical blows easily. That'd be a game changer. Too anxious to ask the price outright, fearing an astronomical figure, he discreetly pulled out his phone to scan the item descriptions. The phone scanner locked onto the wooden staff first. A line of text popped up on his screen. Toxic wooden staff. Striking enemies has a chance to cause their bodies to corrode. His mind buzzed. This wasn't some crappy stick. It was a weapon tailor-made for taking down corroders. He quickly scanned the red potion, and when its description appeared, he almost cursed out loud. Healing potion, used to recover health. A critical resource for sustained gameplay. Jun Peng clenched his fists, his jealousy palpable. These items were life-saving treasures. In the game, they could help solo bosses. In the real world, they could literally save lives. He couldn't hold back anymore. With desperate urgency, he raised his head and asked me, "Hey, bro, are you selling any of this?" Determined like never before, Jun Peng resolved to bring something, anything, from my stall back home, no matter the price. His outburst caught the attention of nearby players, drawing a curious crowd to my stall. Suddenly, my display became the center of attention. People raised their phones, scanning and exclaiming in disbelief. Holy crap, this wooden staff is insane. Is that a healing potion? Can the game really drop this stuff? New armor too? Pair this with the staff and corroders have no chance. The commotion escalated. Let me scan it too. What the damn? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Are you serious right now? Mob mentality took over as players jostled to ask about prices, creating a frenzy around my stall. Meanwhile, I was still engrossed in my game, oblivious to the growing chaos around me. The noise startled me, making me look up, and I froze for a moment when I saw the circle of people crowded around me. It took a while to regain my composure. Boss, how much for the potion? Do you take cash? I'll pay $10,000 per bottle. $10,000? Step aside. I'll pay $100,000 per bottle. I'll take them all. I don't care about the potion. I want that weapon. Sell me that starting stick for $500,000. Cash. A corner of my mouth curled up in a smirk, though my mind remained calm. In my last life, these people were untouchable big shots I could only look up to. But this time around, it's their turn to look up to me. As tempting as it was, price gouging wasn't wise. Settle down. Armor can go for cash, but everything else is trade only for in-game resources. The moment the words left my mouth, disappointment swept across many faces. Sure, they might be rolling in cash in the real world, but inside the game, valuable resources were a different story, especially for those new players who had pretty much nothing worthwhile for trading yet. Someone, unwilling to give up, persisted. Really no cash? You name the price. I'll make it worth your while. Nope. My reply was decisive and swift. Cash. It wouldn't be worth anything more than Tinder a month from now. I had no use for that kind of trash. It didn't take long for some people to connect the dots. Since only armor could be bought with cash, grabbing that first became the priority. Big bro, I'll take the armor, $500,000. I raised an eyebrow. That offer was a bit high, but if someone's going to serve themselves up on a silver platter, who was I to say no? Deal. The buyer stashed the armor into their inventory instantly, and my account saw the funds land just as quickly. Seeing this, the others realized their mistake and started smacking their legs out of sheer regret. Damn, you sneaky little. How did I not think of that? If I'd known, I would have snagged the armor right away. Not everyone was convinced, though. $500,000 for a piece of armor? What a waste of money. And predictably, someone else retorted, you have no idea what you're talking about. It's all about first mover's advantage right now. Gear equals leverage. With the armor claimed, the crowd turned their greedy gazes toward the remaining potions and the stick. That stick wasn't just any weapon. It was the ultimate starter tool for early exploration, with the stats to back it. Durable and powerful for its level, it was worth every tear of envy they held back. If only they had the means to trade for it. At that moment, a young man pushed through the crowd, his eyes practically sparkling as he stared at the venomous wooden staff. Big bro, what kind of resources are you looking to trade for? Special metals or rare materials? I had no use for standard resources. I needed two things: alloys for advancing my shelter and rare components for crafting my own gear. As for extraordinary runestones or artifacts, that was wishful thinking. No one was likely to trade that kind of high-value currency for a stick, no matter how good it was. The crowd quickly began rummaging through their inventories, trying to scrounge up anything of worth. A few rich kids even grabbed their phones on the spot, ordering lackeys to buy up whatever I needed. But then, one of them stepped forward, set his jaw, and handed over a thin, paper-like item from his inventory. Big bro, how about trading this blueprint for your venomous staff? The moment I took it and saw what it was, my expression shifted instantly. You managed to score a blueprint? Blueprint, watchtower. Description, special structure. Requires a crafting bench. Consumes materials upon use to construct a watchtower capable of monitoring activity within a 100-meter radius of the shelter. Single-use item. Special structures meant extra perks. In my last life, I hadn't even seen a blueprint, let alone snagged one. They were rare to come by, and even rarer were the materials needed to make use of them. At that point in my previous life, I hadn't even been able to scrounge enough food to survive, forget trying to chase down rare resources. But this blueprint? It was a game changer. If I could build a watchtower, I'd secure eyes on a 100-meter perimeter around my base. It was the perfect remedy for my shelter's biggest vulnerability. The young man offered an explanation while smiling nervously. Got it from cracking open a loot box. Big bro, will this be enough to trade for your weapon? He knew how valuable the blueprint was, of course. But for him, it was useless for now. No crafting bench, no materials. It was just dead weight in his inventory. Trading it for a weapon he could rely on seemed like a fair deal at this stage. Something life-saving in the short term would let him keep scavenging for even more loot. I was just about to nod in agreement when someone interrupted me. Wait. Nieming appeared, briskly making her way over with a few staff members behind her. Her gaze landed on the items spread across my trading stall, an obvious gleam of excitement lighting up her face. She had been in the admin zone when someone tipped her off that there was high-value loot on offer here, and she'd come running, determined not to miss out. But the moment she realized I was the stall owner, she visibly froze. It's you? In her mind, I was nothing more than an ordinary player. The last time I approached her to gather information, her team had dismissed me as a timid newbie. She hadn't said so directly, but her silence had given away her agreement. Now, looking at the items neatly laid out in my stall, it suddenly clicked for her. I wasn't timid. I was calculated. Maybe I didn't want the chaos of the real world spilling over into the carefully laid plans I'd been carving out in-game. But I wasn't paying much attention to her reaction. I simply smiled and asked, "What can I do for you?" "Captain Ni, you're looking for me?" I noticed the nameplate pinned to Ni Meng's chest, which read, "Captain of the Night Patrol, Team 7. So I addressed her as such. Ni Meng snapped back to attention and got straight to the point. "Of course. Your weapon. You're not planning to hold it back from the government, are you?" I shook my head. Of course not. In fact, I was itching for the officials to step in. After all, only the government could possibly have the rare commodities worth trading for. Ni Meng smiled slightly and pulled a piece of blue animal hide from her backpack, handing it over to me. "Well then, take a look at this. Can I trade it for your poisonous wooden staff?" Pelt of the Howling Windwalker. Description: the pelt of a howling windwalker, imbued with the power of wind. I stared at the animal hide, my gaze growing heavier. I recognized this creature, the Howling Windwalker, a humanoid monster capable of summoning fierce gales. Its strength was nothing short of terrifying. The fact that Ni Meng had this meant the government's stash was way beyond merely having good stuff. But one thing was clear. As I stood now, there was no way I could take on a Windwalker. This pelt most likely wasn't a drop from a slain monster. It was more believable they got it from some treasure chest or stumbled across it by luck. The pelt was valuable, yes, but I still shook my head. Not enough. Not enough. Ni Meng frowned. "Definitely not," I replied calmly. "This pelt may look great, but for me right now, it's practically useless. A waste, honestly. The fact you're offering it shows you're aware of that too." Ni Meng's gaze flickered a bit, and she didn't argue. I smirked slightly. "So, is my saying it's insufficient a problem?" Ni Meng cleared her throat and gave in. "Fine, you're right." She gritted her teeth and pulled out a piece of black metal. "What about this? Add this to the deal. Will that do?" Raising an eyebrow, I took it and examined it. Bloodsteel, a rare metal capable of absorbing blood, can only be found in certain dense mineral veins. My eyes lit up. In my past life, this metal was frequently used to forge weapons. Weapons made with bloodsteel could absorb the blood of their targets, not to feed the wielder, but to weaken the enemy. Ruthless stuff. If I could combine this with my rotten katana, I could potentially end up with a bloodletting perk. A single cut would not only infect wounds with rot, but continue to draw blood passively over time. Just thinking about it sent a shiver down my spine. As for evolving it at the shelter, a chunk this small wouldn't even meet the minimum requirement. I nodded. "All right, good enough." As soon as I spoke, the young man next to me turned pale. "Wait, hold on. I got here first." I smiled. "Relax. Did I ever say I only have one weapon?" Everyone around us froze in shock. The young man's eyes lit up. "You have more." Ni Meng was equally stunned. She immediately pressed. "Not just one? How many more?" "I'll take them all." I rolled my eyes. "In your dreams. There's only one left." I pretended to rummage through my backpack, but in reality, I used my last crafting opportunity. Iron plus, wooden stick, ironwood spiked club. I glanced at the finished product and clicked my tongue. "A spiked club, huh? I handed the ironwood spiked club to the young man. This one for your blueprints. Deal. The young man took one look and instantly beamed with joy, nodding repeatedly. Deal. Absolutely deal. In the shadowed shelter, toughness and brutality ruled supreme. A single clean swing of this spiked club could crush a corroder's head and take it out instantly. I said flatly, glad you're satisfied. I'll be taking the blueprints, then. The young man grinned ear to ear. Go ahead, go ahead. The trade was done. The young man tucked away his new spiked club while I handed the poisonous wooden staff to An Ming. She placed it into her bag, her expression complicated as she looked at me. Got anything better? If so, bring it out. I'll take it all. At first, she thought that was all I had on display. Who would have expected me to pull yet another viable weapon out of nowhere? Her heart sank. Surely, I must have even more valuable items stashed away somewhere. Even though the government had equipment, it was impossible for her to get first pick. Weapons were an especially scarce resource, requiring applications and contribution points to acquire, let alone ones of this caliber. I rolled my eyes again. Stop fantasizing. All I've got left are 3 healing potions. Want them or not? Of course I do. Only an idiot wouldn't. An Ming was well aware of how critical healing potions were. The government had them, sure, but not enough to go around. With 3 sitting right in front of her, there was no way she'd let them go to waste. She fixated on me and pressed. Still trading for rare metals and materials? I stroked my chin, thinking for a moment, then casually changed my terms. I'm willing to trade for resources too, wood, stone, or ironworks. But the quantity better impress me. Really? An Ming's eyes instantly lit up. The surrounding players suddenly buzzed with excitement. They didn't have specialized materials, but basic resources? They had plenty. I nodded. As long as the amount makes me stop and think, you've got a deal. Pause. Last night, I farmed so hard that I almost emptied out my entire inventory. I was really low on resources and needed them badly. The market immediately began to heat up with players bidding higher and higher. Boss, I'll trade 1,000 wood and 1,000 stone, plus 100 iron for 1 bottle. Do you even qualify? I'll give you 2,000 wood, 2,000 stone, and 500 iron for it. Boss, save me a bottle, please. In the end, I sold all 3 potions I had. Not a single one was left for myself. 1 bottle went to An Ming, another to the young man who had purchased a weapon from me earlier, and the third ended up with a rich kid from a wealthy family. The trades came in strong. In total, I got 12,000 wood, 12,000 stone, and 3,000 iron. I could have kept 1 potion for safety, but I chose to sell them all. The potions weren't going to be much use before the dark event happened anyway. Worst case, if I died, I could resurrect. If I got injured, my divine flame skill had me covered, and in any case, I could summon Tiger Mom and baby tiger cubs into the real world whenever I needed to. With 1 month left before the darkness descended, I was confident I could obtain new potions again. So, instead of hoarding, I decided to invest the resources into upgrading my shelter. This market trip was wildly successful for me. I stocked up on blueprints, unique materials, or metals, and heaps upon heaps of basic resources. With nothing more left to sell, I was just about to leisurely stroll around before heading back. That's when the young man who bought the spiked club earlier approached me, phone in hand. Boss, want to exchange contact info? He asked. I couldn't help but laugh. Sure, more connections never hurt in this line of work. After a brief chat, I learned he, too, was from a prominent family. His name was Wang Si from the Ida Corporation. From the sound of it, he had his own crew and resources at his disposal. Once we added each other, Wang Si eagerly asked, "What's your name, boss?" "Bai Yi," I replied. "Then I'm calling you Brother Bai." Wang Si flashed a sincere grin. "Brother Bai, if you've got any gear or special items in the future, make sure you come to me. Money isn't something I'm short on." Chuckling, I gave him a nod. He seemed genuinely exhilarated by the spiked club he'd just acquired. Clearly, he was itching to head back and test it out because he bolted right after. Not long after, An Ming approached me, phone in hand as she waved it in my direction. I knew her intent immediately, and we exchanged contact information as well. An Ming's features were sharp and delicate. Her figure was quite eye-catching. The way her uniform hugged her frame made her curves all the more apparent. I accidentally let my gaze linger for a second too long. She smiled slyly, narrowing her eyes as she asked, "So, Now that it's just the two of us, you want to sell that gear you're wearing? Caught off guard, I stared at her briefly. Clearly, she suspected I had something better in my possession. I shook my head. Not selling. Besides, you probably couldn't afford it. And I Ming didn't seem bothered. Wouldn't you want to find out first? I'm not buying it for myself. I was told to ask on behalf of my higher-ups. With their resources, securing whatever you've got might not be out of reach. She wasn't mincing words. The people she worked for had their eyes on my equipment and were willing to offer high-end materials to get their hands on it. Yet, my reply was firm, no. A blunt, absolute refusal. Her eyes flickered with a hint of disappointment, but she didn't push back. Instead, she simply said that if I ever decided to sell, I should let her know. I neither confirmed nor denied her request. If the time came, whoever bid the most would get it. My priorities were simple, and I Ming sighed. Fine, just don't forget about me when the time comes, all right? I grinned. How could I? You're way too memorable, Captain and I. She huffed lightly, but the corners of her lips betrayed a smile. You know how to flatter, I'll give you that. Anyway, I've got other matters to attend to, so I'll make a move. For the next couple of hours, I wandered the market, sorting through random wares. Eventually, the skies opened up. Rain came pouring down in sheets, so loud it sounded more like buckets of water being emptied all at once. This wasn't the sound of an in-game event. It was the real world's weather. Standing by the market's entrance, I hesitated. I hadn't thought to bring an umbrella. The skies darkened deeper still. The clouds were so low and oppressive that it felt like the weight of the heavens was pressing down. The rain distorted visibility in the distance into a surreal blur. Groups of people, now seeking cover from the deluge, crowded the entrance. Some chatted while others busied themselves with their phones. A few even recognized me and asked to add me as a friend. I accepted those requests casually. But outside, hidden deeper within a nearby forest, shadows began to stir. Over 20 figures, all clad in long black coats, gathered together, their faces obscured. Only the figure standing at their helm had an uncovered face. A single glance was enough to see he wasn't from Daxia, China. He scrutinized the factory in the distance and sneered. Friends, the time has come. Take care of all of them. At his words, the group behind him exchanged knowing glances, their eyes brimming with anticipation. Danger seeped into the air as rain and mist intertwined. Unbeknownst to the people within the market, a lethal threat was closing in. Back inside, as the rain finally began to ebb, I readied myself to head out. That's when Ni Meng appeared once again, her expression hospitable as ever. How about I give you a ride? She offered with a smile. If I remember correctly, your place is pretty far, right? How about I give you a ride? I arched an eyebrow before breaking into a grin. Well, if Captain Ni is offering, how could I possibly refuse? Ni Meng's lips curved into a sly smile as though gauging me. Don't overthink it. The higher-ups wanted me to touch base with you. You know, to make sure you don't forget about us when you've got some big-ticket goods again. Smirking, I nodded. All right then, Captain and I. If it's you, I won't forget. My car's over there, she said, gesturing with her head, a subtle twinkle in her eye as she started walking away. Bang! Gunfire erupted abruptly, shattering the street's calm like a thunderclap. The once bustling market froze as if someone had hit pause. Quietly, I flipped the mute switch on my comms. I whipped around just in time to see a player on the side of the road take a shot to the chest, blood spraying like a geyser as they collapsed to the ground, eyes wide in shock. Across the street, a group of men dressed in black robes emerged, guns raised, and immediately unleashed a hail of bullets. Shit. My face darkened as I dove and pulled Nieming down with me, rolling behind a car for cover. Bang, bang, bang. Bullets rained down like a torrential storm. Sparks flew as they ricocheted off metal, and in an instant, the air was filled with screams and chaos. Keeping my voice low, I cursed, Captain Ni, didn't you say nothing like this could happen here? What the hell do you call this? Grinding her teeth, Nieming returned fire with her pistol. I didn't expect this, either. They're not from Daxia, that's for sure. Likely an outside force, and they've got some guts pulling this off here. Peeking around the edge of the car, my heart pounded as I took stock of the situation. There were at least 20 of them, heavily armed and absolutely brutal, mowing down players left and right like they were nothing. Some didn't even stand a chance, torn to shreds almost instantly by the gunfire. What do they want? Why are they killing us? I asked through clenched teeth. Niming hesitated for a moment. Then, in a whisper, she said, because in this game, killing other players can sometimes make their loot drop. And there's a rumor that someone scored an entire shelter like this before. My pupils contracted sharply. You're saying they're here to farm us? That they targeted this marketplace deliberately? She gave a grim nod. Yeah. I drew in a deep breath. So, what's the plan? Without a word, Niming tossed me a gun, her icy gaze locking onto mine. We make sure they regret it. Kill them. Leaning out from behind the car, she fired 2 precise shots, dropping one of the robed figures to the pavement. Nobody gets away with shooting in Dacia. Not alive. I couldn't help but twitch a corner of my mouth in a half-smile. You guys don't have some secret one-shot kill power for this kind of situation? Nope. She shook her head, dead serious. I sighed, a heavy exhale that carried my remaining options with it as my expression darkened. Guess that means it's on me now. The last thing I wanted was to expose my own abilities, but bullets don't exactly care about keeping secrets. Raising my right hand, I spread my palm, and a flame, a glowing blaze of gold and white, burst to life. Niming froze in place, her eyes wide with astonishment, her jaw all but unhinged. Sacred flame? You. I didn't bother with an explanation. With a flick of my wrist, the bright, searing flame formed into a serpentine shape, streaking forward like a living entity of destruction. In that instant, all eyes, including the black-robed gunman, snapped toward the fire serpent. What is that? A fire serpent? Never mind that. It's coming straight for us. Panic seeped into their voices as they opened fire, desperately trying to halt the fiery creature streaking through the air. But sacred flame isn't something you can shoot. The bullets passed through it effortlessly, as though it were no more substantial than the wind. With a hiss that sounded almost alive, the flame serpent struck one of the robed figures. The man's screams rose sharply as he ignited, his entire body engulfed in an instant. He dropped to the ground, writhing for only a moment before the flames consumed him entirely. And that was only the beginning. I directed the serpent with a tilt of my fingers, watching as it darted from one enemy to the next. This wasn't any ordinary fire. Sacred flame burned straight into the very bones. The moment even the smallest ember made contact, there was no escape. Screams filled the air, one after another, as a half-dozen bodies collapsed, aflame, all in a matter of heartbeats. By the time the rampage slowed, only 2 of the black-robed attackers remained standing. Their guns were shaking in their hands, but they didn't dare fire, frozen in place with wide, terrified eyes. I narrowed my gaze and raised my palm again. Hold it. Wang Jingwo's voice rang out suddenly. I hesitated just long enough for 2 staff members to rush forward, pinning the last remaining attackers to the ground and securing them. Only then did I extinguish the sacred flame, sending the serpent vanishing into the ether. I understood the reasoning, of course. They needed survivors for interrogation to figure out who had the audacity to pull this kind of attack. With the black-robed forces neutralized, the gunfire finally ceased. Silence fell over the battlefield before the scattered players began poking their heads out from behind cover. Once they were sure the danger had passed, relief flooded their faces, and one by one, shouts of gratitude and disbelief began to rise. Man, we would have been toast if it weren't for you. No kidding. You saved all of us. Seriously, what are the night guards even doing? How'd it come to this in the first place? The staff on site looked furious but stayed silent, unable to argue as backlash continued to mount. Allowing an armed assault on a protected marketplace in Daxiao of all places was going to be near impossible to justify later. Wang Jingwo stepped in front of me and bowed low, his face full of sincerity. Mr. Bai, thank you truly. Don't mention it. I just didn't want to get myself killed, I replied, brushing it off casually. Shaking his head, Wang Jingwo straightened. No, without you, we likely wouldn't have made it out of that alive. The night guards owe you one for this. If there's anything you need in the future, please don't hesitate to come to us. Noted, I said with a nod, already planning to hold him to it. Satisfied, Wang Jingwo turned away, heading off to reassure the other players and promise compensation for what had happened. Meanwhile, I tightened my grip on the lingering embers of sacred flame, quietly wondering who had the audacity to provoke Daxiao like this, and whether this was just the beginning. Dream walked up to me, her expression complicated. she said. By ye, earlier, thank you. I waved her off. If you really want to thank me, just hurry up and take me home. I don't want to stay here anymore. All right, let me check in with Captain Wang, and then I'll take you. And I Ming nodded and turned to leave. Before long, she was back and led me over to the car. The two of us got inside, buckled up, and the vehicle slowly pulled away. In a low voice, I Ming said, "You really helped us out big time this time." Captain Wang asked me to pass along a message. I turned to her. "What's the message?" "The patrol owes you a favor. On top of that, we're going to apply for a game resource reward for you. You can choose between special materials or special metals. When you decide, let me know, and I'll pass it along." I understood what this was about. They were putting the favor out there first, then offering some tangible benefits to sweeten the deal, making it even harder to refuse. But I didn't mind. A favor and a reward? Sounds like a win to me. After thinking for a moment, I replied, "Forget the materials. I'll take the special metals." And I Ming nodded. "Got it. I'll let Captain Wang know. Thanks for handling that," I said. The car moved steadily through the rain, droplets pattering softly against the windows. I rolled down the window a tiny bit, letting the cold wind rush in. "So, any leads on who attacked you guys?" I asked, and I Ming bit her lip. "Not yet. They hit us out of nowhere. We weren't prepared." Her tone turned colder. "But we did capture one of them alive. Sooner or later, we'll get what we need out of him." I could tell by her tone that with the authorities involved, whoever was behind this was likely in big trouble. "Once you have something, can you let me know?" I pressed. She agreed without hesitation. "Sure, I will." When we arrived at my place, I got out of the car and waved goodbye. Once the car disappeared down the street, I went inside, grabbed a can of soda from the fridge, and chugged it down on the couch. My excitement couldn't be contained. Even though today had been a total whirlwind, I'd struck gold. The attackers I'd taken down had dropped loot, and there was a ton of it. I opened up the game on my phone, and immediately a stream of notifications popped up. "You eliminated another player and obtained Stone X 2000, Wood X 2000, Iron X 500, Wool X 10. You eliminated another player and obtained Stone X 3000, Wood X 3000, Iron X 100. You eliminated another player and obtained Black Iron X 100, Shelter Upgrade Blueprint X1, Shelter Core X1. Turns out those attackers were players too. With every takedown, their resources were sent straight into my shelter's inventory. I couldn't check while I was out earlier, but now that I did the math, I realized I'd hit the jackpot. Over 20,000 units each of stone and wood, about 7,000 units of iron, plus rare items like black iron, blueprints, and a core. Insane. I let out a low laugh. Let's see the officials try setting up a player market after this. I let myself revel in the moment before diving back into the game. The tigress and her cub were lying in the shelter, resting. Outside, the torrential rain poured down like it was trying to pierce through the whole world. I opened my inventory and pulled out the blueprint and core to inspect them. Shelter Upgrade Blueprint requires a crafting bench for use. By consuming materials, this can initiate a shelter-wide upgrade. Single-use item. Shelter Core. Insert into the Shelter Core module to expand the shelter's space. A grin spread across my face. Now these are game changers. Both the blueprint and core were incredibly valuable. The blueprint could upgrade utilities like drainage, electrical circuits, and power generation. Once applied, these improvements would permanently bind to the shelter, and they'd evolve with future upgrades. The core, on the other hand, was an instant space expansion, no upgrades needed. Just pop it in for more room. I knew all too well how agonizing it was to deal with limited space. Even for one person, if you wanted to live comfortably, you'd need storage, facilities, maybe a workspace or two. Without enough space, everything felt cramped and inefficient. The blueprint can wait, I decided. The modifications I wanted to make required some specific materials I still didn't have. With any luck, I might stumble upon them soon. Otherwise, I'd have to wait until the dark zones emerged and cobble something together from real-world materials. But the core? That could be used right away. I guided my character into the shelter's core room and inserted the core into the module. The moment I did, the entire shelter rumbled. The tigress and her cubs snapped awake, looking around warily. I immediately calmed them. "Don't worry. I'm just expanding the space. It'll be over soon. No danger." The tiger let out a low growl, seemingly reassured. and curled back up with her cub in their den. A few moments later, the expansion was complete. The shelter's floor area had increased from 300 square meters to 500 square meters, opening up a massive new space. I knew that new area would soon be brimming with my ever-growing stash of loot. Time to start the upgrades, I murmured, eyeing the materials I'd need. Upgrade requirements: wood X10 000, stone X10 000, iron X5 000. My eyes gleamed with excitement. Rang. I glanced at the caller ID. It was an unfamiliar number. Hesitating only briefly, I picked it up. "Hello," I said, keeping my tone steady. A deep, somewhat authoritative voice came through. "Is this DH?" I tensed slightly, but kept my voice neutral. "Yes, speaking. Who's this?" The person hesitated for a moment before continuing. "You don't know me, but I'd like to discuss something regarding yesterday's incident in the market." My brows furrowed. "You're referring to the chaos and aftermath? If you're from the official side, you should already know the details." The voice chuckled softly. "I'm not affiliated with the officials. Let's just say I'm someone who appreciates talent when I see it. And judging by your actions, you're someone worth knowing." I stayed silent, mulling over his words. It didn't feel like a trap, but it was clear I'd caught someone's attention. Whether that was a good or bad thing, I wasn't certain yet. "What exactly do you want from me?" I asked, my tone direct. "Let's keep it simple," they said. "I'd like to extend a partnership. Mutual gains, if you will. You have skills, and I can provide access to resources that might be hard for you to come by alone. The game is shifting quickly. You'll need allies. Think about it." "You're being vague," I replied flatly. "For now," they admitted. "Take the day to consider it. I'll reach out again soon." Before I could respond, the line disconnected. Placing the phone down, I let out a deep breath. A partnership? I already had more on my plate than I could handle, but having access to rare resources didn't sound entirely unappealing. Still, I didn't like being approached out of nowhere, especially by someone who seemed to know a bit too much. My thoughts were interrupted when the game's notification sound chimed. I glanced at the screen, an in-game message from King Solstice, aka Wang Si. King Solstice * got it. Secured a batch of black obsidian. It's not much, but it should cover about 80% of what you need. I can deliver it by noon. How's that sound? A small smile tugged at the corner of my lips. Despite his light-hearted demeanor, Wang Si was surprisingly efficient. Maybe this partnership would prove useful after all. DH * perfect. I'll wait on your message when it's ready. With my immediate tasks now on standby, I leaned back on the couch. The sound of rain continued its heavy rhythm outside, mirroring the in-game storm lingering in my shelter. The eerie synchronicity between reality and the game was unsettling, but it didn't matter. I'd made it through worse before. I glanced at the tiger cub snoozing beside me, its tiny body curled up against the armrest. A chuckle escaped me as I reached over to give it a gentle pat. Despite everything, small comforts like these reminded me that even amidst chaos, there would always be something worth holding on to. "Let's see what today brings," I murmured, looking at the endless rain. The phone rang. The caller ID displayed one name, and I Meng. I raised an eyebrow. That interrogation wrapped up quickly, I muttered. Without wasting a second, I answered. And I Meng's voice came through the line, calm as ever. "I'm not interrupting, am I?" "Not at all. What's up?" "Yesterday, you asked about those people, remember? We questioned them through the night and got most of the details." "Let's hear it," I said. And I Meng's voice turned cold, like a sheet of ice. "Just as you guessed, they're tied to foreign forces. The group's called Dawn, an overseas criminal organization. These guys were mercenaries until they found out about the game. Then they started shifting gears, going after players specifically. Dawn." I froze. The name churned bitter memories, sending chills down my spine. That organization, they were vicious in my last life, full of experts and utterly ruthless. Their hallmark? Targeting humans. Rumors said they later pledged allegiance to some dark god, which only made them stronger and more dangerous. Wait a minute. Damn, now it made sense. Yesterday's location, that place felt familiar for a reason. I mumbled, suddenly piecing it together. In my past life, someone had mentioned Dawn's initial operation within Daxia's borders. The location? An old, abandoned factory in the outskirts of Shanghai, the very spot where that underground market had been. Their first strike didn't go unnoticed either. It infuriated Daxia's officials, leading to a relentless crackdown that nearly crushed Dawn into oblivion. They didn't make a comeback until months after the darkness descended, when they sold their soul to the so-called Dark God. That realization oddly brought relief. Initially, I'd worried my recent actions might have made me a target for foreign forces. But seeing how things played out according to this timeline, Dawn would soon be too preoccupied saving their own skin to bother with me. You're awfully quiet. What's on your mind? N.I. Ming's question brought me back to the present. Nothing much, I said. Just wondering why these foreign groups suddenly got so bold. Usually, they wouldn't dare step foot here. N.I. Ming let out a cold scoff. They're testing us. Testing us. In the game, players can kill each other to loot items. The drop rate's significant. Even core abilities can be lost if you're unlucky. Some people don't want to put in the effort, so they've resorted to killing their way to power. And Dawn has the backing of other nations. A lot of places abroad are already in chaos thanks to the game. Those nations want to see if the same could happen to Dacia. If they find an opening, they'll push to amplify the disorder as much as possible. I got the picture. So it's all a game of chess, and Dawn is the blade charging in first. What's the plan to deal with them? I asked. N.I. Ming's voice grew even colder. None of them are walking out of this. We both understood that continuing this line of conversation would toe the line of confidentiality agreements. Quietly, we shifted topics, our unspoken understanding in action. I decided to ask about my reward. You mentioned rewards yesterday. What's the deal with that? N.I. Ming's tone lightened slightly. It's the main reason I called. After the raid, Shanghai's inventory included a decent amount of special metals. Got any preferences? I blinked. I get to choose? Yes. You've earned it. The contribution you made warrants this level of courtesy. A glimmer of excitement stirred in me. All right then, I won't hold back. Do you have any light-absorbing source crystals? N.I. Ming paused. We do. But are you sure that's what you want? Positive, I nodded firmly. How many do you have? She thought about it. Quite a few. No one's really figured out what they're good for, so there's a stockpile of at least a few dozen. My heart skipped a beat. How many can I take? 3, she said flatly. I frowned. That's too little. N.I. Ming's sharp instincts kicked in. If you're after that crystal so badly, it must serve an important purpose, doesn't it? I didn't hide the truth. Yes, I have a specific use for it, but I need 7 more. How about this? I exchanged 2 weapons for extra pieces. Deal. Light-absorbing source crystals were materials that could absorb and store light. Most people thought them useless, but for me, they were essential. I needed them to construct a watchtower, where secrecy was the key, not height. In the dark terrain, materials like this would blend seamlessly into the shadows, becoming nearly invisible from a distance. Sure, better materials like void stones and sky mystic gold existed, but they were out of reach right now. This crystal? It was the best I could work with for the moment. N.I. Ming was surprised. You have extra weapons to trade? I coughed awkwardly. Yesterday was a lucky day. I happened to pick some up. She didn't press further and instead went straight to negotiation. Fine. Let's talk details. What kind of weapons? The same quality as the spike club I handed over last time. She shook her head. Not enough. I'll need 3 weapons at minimum. Not happening. I countered. 2 tops. A sly smile crept into her voice. Deal. I'll have the crystals sent to you right away. From my perspective, exchanging 2 items for such critical materials was a win. The watchtower was now one step closer to completion. Just the black obsidian remained. Once it was built, even when disasters struck, I'd have the means to continue venturing out. It was an investment with no downside. As the call ended, N.I. Ming promptly began coordinating my request. Assets, she must first report to her superior. And her superior now is none other than Wang Jiangwo. After yesterday's commotion, the previous leader got removed from his post. With Wang Jiangwo's qualifications and steady demeanor, he naturally took over the position. N.I. Ming knocked on the door. She only entered when she heard it come in. Wang Jiangwo was buried in paperwork. Upon looking up and spotting her, he seemed a bit surprised. Xiaoming, what brings you here? Did something happen with Bai Yi? The stance of the branch office was quite clear. Maintain friendly relations, avoid conflict. There's no telling how useful someone could be in the future. That's why they always had N.I. Ming maintaining contact with me. Suppressing her excitement, N.I. Ming said, Boss, good news. Bai Yi wants to trade 2 weapons with us in exchange for 7 pieces of light source crystals. Wang Jiangwo froze in place. And I Ming froze too when she saw the pile of weapons. 2 pieces? Didn't he just sell 2 yesterday? How does he still have so many? Based on what I've kept for myself, I still have at least 5. And by how thrilled an I Ming looks, these weapons must be of no lower quality than yesterday's spiked club. And I Ming shook her head. No idea. All he said was that he found them, probably stumbled upon them while exploring. Wang Jingwo frowned. Exploring? Doesn't seem quite right. What level are the weapons? And I Ming replied. Same level as the spiked club he traded yesterday. Wang Jingwo's eyes lit up. After pondering briefly, he made a decisive decision. This guy has potential. Xiaoming, make sure you secure this connection tightly. And I Ming appeared puzzled. Aren't we already on pretty good terms? Wang Jingwo leaned in and lowered his voice. Not good enough. He's after light source crystals, right? Add another 10 pieces and send them over immediately. Startled, and I Ming said, an extra 10? Sir, isn't this overkill? Wang Jingwo replied sharply. You're missing the bigger picture. What I value isn't just how good he is in combat, but the fact that he can casually take out this many weapons. What's even more crucial is that 3 of them are identical. Do you know what this implies? And I Ming's face changed as she comprehended. You're saying, these aren't loot from exploration? He made them himself. Wang Jingwo nodded. The ability to pull out 4 or 5 items at once, and identical ones at that, means there's a high chance this guy can craft weapons, likely due to his innate talent. Building rapport with him now gives us a massive advantage moving forward. Today, he's crafting ordinary weapons. Tomorrow, he might create extraordinary ones. The more Wang Jingwo thought about it, the more he was convinced. He was even considering reporting this up immediately. Of course, I had no idea how far their imaginations had run. If I did know, all I'd think is, I'm making a killing on this deal. At the moment, I was casually chatting with Wang Si over the phone. Soon enough, she sent me some news that got my heart racing. Obsidian. Secured. Wang Si. Big bro bye. I found a supplier for obsidian. How much do you need? Me. That fast. Wang Si. I've been establishing a few guilds lately. Someone found a cluster of buildings too dangerous to excavate fully. But those buildings are entirely built of obsidian and can be dismantled directly. My eyes glimmered with envy. A location constructed out of obsidian? Odds are, it's hiding something amazing inside. Too bad I wasn't the one to stumble upon it first. Me. I'll take 1,000 units. Wang Si, got it. I'll handle it and hit you up when it's ready. Me. I'll be waiting. After the chat, Wang Si logged off. I was in a great mood. This is it. Time to solidify my Outlook Tower plans today. I grabbed the tiger cub and ruffled it vigorously. The cub squirmed but couldn't escape, resorting to yelping for help from its mama. The mother tiger didn't even glance up, continuing to lick her fur. Hopeless, the little cub surrendered to its fate. Shortly after lunch, there was a knock at the door. I squinted. It's either an I Ming or Wang Si. Before opening the door, I tucked both the tiger and her cub into the shelter. No one else needed to know about them. This mama tiger is my trump card. For now, its secrecy is paramount. As expected, it was both I Ming and Wang Si at the door. I Ming smiled. I'm here to deliver something. Wang Si waved cheerily. Me too. I invited them inside and poured each a cup of tea. I Ming skipped any small talk. She directly pulled some light source crystals out of her bag. Upon seeing the count, I immediately noticed there were 10 extra. I frowned. What's this? She explained. The higher-ups instructed me to give these extras to you as a bonus. With a smile, I nodded and accepted. Pass along a thank you to your boss for me. Naturally, I knew they probably had their own agenda behind this. But hey, when someone brings you something nice right to your door, why not take it? After securing all 20 source crystals, I pulled out 2 spiked clubs from my inventory. Wang Si immediately lit up. Dang. Big bro, you have more spare weapons. I quickly gestured for them to calm down. For now, that's all. But as soon as the word temporary left my mouth, both I Ming and Wang Si's eyes lit up. I Ming pressed further. So, does that mean there might be more in the future? Wang Si immediately chimed in. There will be more in the future, right? I gave a small chuckle. Hard to say, no guarantees. I Ming quickly followed up. If you get more weapons someday, contact me directly. The official price won't be a problem. Wang Si got anxious. Hey, don't forget about me. I'll buy 2. He could tell I either had a stash or the means to craft more. People like me, you had to forge some kind of connection with them. I didn't take the bait. I just gave a flat response. We'll see. Then I shifted my focus to Wang Si. Obsidian was the priority now. Wang Si glanced at Meng. Meng got up and smiled. I've got something to handle, so I won't stay any longer. Let's keep in touch. I stood and said, I'll walk you out. Meng waved it off. No need. She took the initiative to leave, giving us space. As soon as the door shut, Wang Si pulled out the obsidian. Here you go, boss. Exactly 1,000 units. Not a single one short. I stared at the jet black, mirror-like stone, unable to hide the excitement in my eyes. Great, thanks. With the materials complete, the watchtower could be built anytime. I looked at Wang Si. Whatever you want to ask, just ask. If I know it, I'll tell you. Wang Si rubbed his hands together, laughing. All right, I won't hold back. First, about supernatural powers. Where do they come from? What do you know? I nodded. I know a bit. I explained the whole thing about runes. In this game, the majority of supernatural abilities that a player could possess were closely tied to runes. Of course, there were other ways, but they were ridiculously difficult. No point bringing them up now. Wang Si thought for a moment, then asked again, can players craft items in the game? Like weapons or potions? Even without recipes or blueprints? I glanced at him and nodded. Yes. Wang Si's eyes lit up, smiling even more. All right, that clears most of my questions. I'll take my leave, boss. See you. Wang Si turned and left, efficient and straightforward. Watching his back disappear, I murmured to myself, smart guy? Nobody's a fool. Trading 1,000 units of obsidian for answers to 2 questions. On the surface, it seemed like a loss. For most people, it would be. But for someone like Wang Si, it was a huge win. He used resources to buy my goodwill and gain intel on how things worked. Now that he knew weapons could be forged and potions brewed, he'd definitely start hoarding ore and alchemical ingredients. Probably even recruit blacksmiths and alchemists in advance. The rich don't fear challenges, they fear losing the race. I chuckled to myself. But what does that have to do with me? I headed back to my room, picked up my phone, and opened the game. Would you like to build a watchtower? Yes. Choose construction location. The screen shifted to an overhead building interface. The layout of my shelter appeared, complete with the dimensions of the watchtower. Since the shelter was underground, the tower had to be built above ground. After some thought, I decided to place it directly above the shelter's exit. The exit was originally just an iron hatch, which opened to let you climb out. I wanted to make the exit lead directly into the watchtower's interior, with another exit at the top of the tower. After finalizing the placement, I hit the build button. Constructing. A flash of gold. Then another prompt popped up. 3 minutes later, the message changed to construction complete. I immediately went to check. Watchtower. Trait 1. Light absorption. Plunges the surrounding area into deeper darkness. Trait 2. Light storage. Stores light sources, which need special methods to utilize. Trait 3. Lookout. Allows observation up to 100 meters away from the tower's top, unaffected by the light absorption trait. I burst into laughter. Didn't disappoint me one bit. The second trait wasn't immediately usable. I lacked the materials for modifications. That would have to wait. But just the light absorption combined with the lookout was already powerful enough. I maneuvered my character to the exit and hesitated for a moment. What if I opened the hatch, and the floodwaters poured in directly? After a brief pause, I decided to take the risk. I opened it. No water. In front of me stretched a dimly lit passageway. Climbing up would bring me into the watchtower interior, where a heavy metal door lay ahead. Instead of opening that, I looked up. Inside the tower was a spiral staircase, winding up to the top. Guiding the character upwards, I pushed open the door at the highest level. A gust of wind slammed into me instantly. Rain lashed against my face, and thunder roared like explosions in my ears. The fury of the natural disaster hit me head-on. Looking out, the land had been swallowed entirely by rushing floodwaters. Mud, rocks, and broken tree trunks rolled relentlessly, smashing into each other like crazed beasts. The sheer power was terrifying. Standing inside the watchtower, my line of sight expanded, letting me see clearly within 100 meters. Clearly, the devastation from the natural disaster is now strikingly apparent and far more tangible. The places I had explored before were now completely gone, replaced by an endless expanse of water, as if the land had directly transformed into a boundless ocean. And the worst part? There were things lurking beneath the floodwaters. I fixated my gaze on the surface and caught a glimpse of something massive slithering under the water, an enormous creature, easily 100 meters long. Its skin was pale gray, its face disturbingly reminiscent of a baby's, with a protruding forehead, sunken eye sockets glowing green, and an appearance that made my scalp prickle with unease. Baby God. The moment I recognized it, I immediately shifted my gaze, terrified of catching its attention. This creature bore the visage of an infant, but wielded the sinister power of an evil god. It belonged to the class of divine entities, only emerging from the deep sea during catastrophic floods. And of all places, it happened to appear near my shelter. A chill ran down my spine. Luckily, I hadn't carelessly opened my shelter's entry point. If it had spotted me, the protection of my hideout wouldn't have stood a chance against it. With my current level of defense, there was no way I could fend off a creature of this magnitude. If it targeted me, it would be certain death. Fortuitously, the baby god soon dove back into the depths and crawled away into the distance, eventually vanishing beyond my sight. Only then did I let out the breath I had been holding and resumed scanning my surroundings. While the flood had brought forth monsters, it also washed up opportunities. Drawing from memories of my past life, I knew that flooding often unearthed ancient relics hidden within mountains, which would then drift downstream. Soon enough, something caught my attention. Not far from my vantage point, there was a wooden treasure chest floating atop the water. Since it had entered my sight, letting it slip away was not an option. But leaving the watchtower to retrieve it was even less feasible. These waters were overwhelmingly deep, and attempting to step out would be a death sentence. I needed to get creative. I returned to the shelter and crafted a makeshift rope out of fabric using my crafting box, then fashioned a simple hook from wood to create a grappling tool. I had one synthesis attempt left for the day, so I tossed vampire gold and a rotten katana into the synthesis box. Ding! Synthesis successful. You have obtained an enchanted rotten katana. The newly synthesized katana was deadlier than ever, with both corrosive and bleeding effects. A grin spread across my face, though a strange unease gnawed at me. I'm supposed to be a mage. Why do I keep obsessing about using swords? I forced down the unusual impulse, tucked away the katana, and headed back to the tower roof. Time to fetch that treasure chest. Once I was back on top, the floating chest had conveniently drifted near the edge of the tower. I swung the hook out, and after a few tries, successfully hauled it up. I opened the chest as a system prompt flashed before me. You have opened the wooden chest and obtained Iron X100. Not bad. I nodded with a sense of satisfaction. It wasn't groundbreaking, but finding free resources was better than nothing. Taking in the surroundings once more from the watchtower, I noticed that the floodwaters below were teeming with shadowy forms. If not for this endless expanse of water blocking my path, I could have already been out there wreaking havoc with Tiger Mom. The rain continued to pour, oppressively dark as though ink had been spilled across the sky, making it difficult for the monsters to notice me high above. As I surveyed the distance, my eyes narrowed. Wait, is that a structure? I rubbed my eyes and focused again. A smile crept onto my face. Emerging from the water was a pointed black spire, seemingly constructed of an unfamiliar dark stone. It wasn't obsidian, but its hue was peculiar. It was roughly 70 meters away from my position, but in this catastrophic flood, it might as well have been a world away. Still, I wasn't about to let this chance go to waste. I reasoned with myself, it's just a game. If I die, I can respawn. And since leaving the tower wouldn't risk flooding my shelter, the gamble seemed worth it. I turned back to the shelter and called for Tiger Mom. Taking it up to the rooftop, I pointed toward the distant spire. See that? Think you can freeze a path for me to get there? Tiger Mom hesitated briefly, then nodded. I can do that. My spirits lifted. If Tiger Mom's freeze didn't work, I would have had to resort to building a raft. But waiting for treasure chests to drift by was too unreliable in a disaster like this. It was better to take control of the situation and potentially stumble upon something game-changing. Tiger Mom interrupted my thoughts. Want me to go with you? No, I replied, shaking my head. I'll go alone. You stay here and guard the base. If anything happens to me, I can respawn. You can't. Without wasting further words, Tiger Mom unleashed an icy blast toward the flood. With the sound of loud cracks and creaks, an ice path stretched out from underneath us, solid enough to traverse. "This won't hold for long," Tiger Mom warned. "So make it quick." I secured myself to the tower with the grappling hook, then let myself drop, landing steadily on the ice path below. The next moment, black mist surged around me, swallowing up most of my vision. My heart sank. Once you left the watchtower, the black mist crept back in. Gritting my teeth, I strained to orient myself and charged toward the distant spire. But then, roar! A thunderous roar tore through the air. A monstrous figure burst out of the floodwaters, its body covered in scales yet bearing legs, blocking my path. A deep diver? I frowned, gripping my katana tightly. With one swift strike, I slashed through its neck. A wet squelch accompanied the blow, and the creature's wound quickly began to rot away. Blackish red blood sprayed everywhere as the monster collapsed and moved no more. The deep diver. It's a monster commonly seen during floods, just like the infant god, originating from the deep sea. These creatures are sea-dwelling beings that mutated after worshipping an eldritch deity. Individually, they're not terrifying, but their numbers, they're overwhelming. If one surfaced, it's likely there's an entire swarm of deep strikers cruising below. I muttered under my breath, a shiver running down my spine. If they managed to surround me, I wouldn't even make it close to that building. Heck, I probably wouldn't make it back to the shelter. Without hesitation, I crouched down and began harvesting. Harvest successful. Obtained deep sea scales X3, tainted blood X1. Not daring to linger, I spun around and dashed toward the building. The deep strikers beneath the water noticed me one after another, surging up in waves to tear into me. Fortunately, they weren't that strong, and they hadn't yet formed a blockade. I slashed my way through the onslaught, cutting down one with each strike while harvesting every single corpse I left behind. Before long, I finally arrived at the structure. That big. From a distance, all I could see was a tiny speck above the water's surface, but up close, it turned out to be a platform with a diameter of 4 or 5 meters. In the platform's center was a hatch, an entrance that led down into the structure. The outline of the building beneath the water was even more imposing, resembling a massive pyramid that broadened as it extended downward. Could this be a ruin? Excitement flashed in my eyes. In my past life, the word ruin alone was enough to send everyone into a frenzy. Blueprints, rare materials, furniture, tools, runes, and sometimes you might even come across a dormant wanderer who could be recruited directly. Some say ruins were structures left behind by those trying to preserve civilization before the old world was swallowed by darkness. Bigger ruins were like imperial vaults, rumored to even hold divine relics. Smaller ruins? Those were usually shelters left by powerful individuals, offering a sliver of hope to those who came after. Though I couldn't yet confirm it, the sheer scale of this place suggested it wouldn't be empty-handed. If this really is a ruin, then the traps inside are bound to be extensive. Suppressing my excitement, I took a deep breath, opened the hatch, and leapt into the dark passageway. The inside wasn't flooded, it remained dry. However, it was pitch black, so dark you couldn't see your own hand in front of your face. I pulled out a scrap of cloth from my backpack and used my flame spell to ignite it. The firelight immediately lit up the passageway. A straight path led downward, the air thick with dust. The walls, made of some extraordinary material, bore black marks from the passage of time. In the corner were a few clay pots. I casually cracked one open, revealing it was filled with gold and silver coins. These were currency from the old empire in the land of shadows, long since obsolete. Still, I dumped every last coin into my backpack. Gold and silver, as materials, would always have a purpose at some point. Guess I'll take a look at the stuff I just harvested. Opening my pack, I examined the loot from the deep strikers, primarily deep sea scales and tainted blood. Both were anything but useless. Deep sea scales, tough, flexible, and waterproof. Tainted blood, from the deep sea, corrupted by an eldritch deity, emits a maddening aura. These are real treasures, I thought as my eyes gleamed. Deep sea scales were perfect for crafting gear. Tainted blood, well, in my past life, I'd collected some too, though no one ever figured out its use. Still, I kept it anyway. Nothing I picked up would ever be wasted. On this trip alone, I'd killed about 20 deep strikers, netting 70 or 80 scales and almost 20 drops of tainted blood. It was a shame I'd already maxed out today's synthesis attempts. Otherwise, I'd have crafted something on the spot. Closing my pack, I gripped my decayed longsword tightly, staring intently at the passage ahead. The real exploration was about to begin. The building was eerily silent, the only sound the echo of my own footsteps down the corridor. I didn't dare relax. Places like this thrived on catching people off guard. Predictably, just a few steps in, I triggered a trap. With a click, a row of black openings appeared in the walls, unleashing a torrent of poisonous darts. Knew it'd be rigged. I muttered, my face darkening as I weaved through the storm of darts. After a full minute, the volley ceased, leaving the ground littered with darts. Poison dart, tipped with venom. The toxicity has weakened with time. Even though I don't have a bow, there's no way I'm just leaving these behind. I swept up all several hundred poison darts into my backpack. Their iron-tipped heads, laced with venom, could come in handy or be sold later on. Pure profit. Smirking at the thought, I pressed onward. To my surprise, the path ahead was uneventful. No further traps until I reached the corridor's end. There stood a tightly sealed obsidian door, heavy and imposing. I pressed an ear against it. Not a single sound came through, the soundproofing near flawless. Whatever's behind here doesn't matter. Charge through and figure it out later. It's not like I can actually die, anyway. If I do, there's always tomorrow. Come on. I controlled my character to reach out and push the door. The moment my character's hand made contact with the door, *buzz*, the screen shook violently, a flash of red light appeared, and my character was injured. My stomach twisted uncomfortably. The next second, the screen rapidly dimmed. Then with a heavy thud, my character collapsed on the ground. You have been poisoned to death. Damn it. I was completely frozen in shock. I had carefully avoided all the poisoned arrows along the way. So how did I get poisoned? Yet, my character's health inexplicably started dropping the moment I touched the door, eventually succumbing to the poison. The more I thought about it, the less it made sense. Then, a realization hit me out of nowhere. There's poison on the door. It was likely the door itself had hidden spikes or something laced with toxins. Just a momentary scratch, and the venom entered the bloodstream. I couldn't hold back from cursing. Damn it. Whoever designed this place is a seriously devious bastard. I thought I had been plenty careful, but still got outplayed. Gotta take the loss and learn the lesson for today. I'll come back tomorrow. But at this point, my determination had flared up completely. The greater the danger, the greater the reward. Just wait. Tomorrow, that ruin is mine. For now, I'll go cuddle with my baby tiger for comfort. The night passed. In the early morning, I woke up, yawned, gently moved the snoozing cub from my arms to the side, and grabbed my phone to scroll through the forums. The Anonymous Adventurers forum was buzzing. Its top post had been replaced by an official announcement on the aftermath of the market raid incident. Eyebrows raised, I tapped into it. So quick. The post was straightforward. Apparently, the government had launched a retaliatory strike against the Dawn Syndicate. Within the borders of the Summerland, they had already rounded up every related group and member in one fell swoop. Moving forward, they're vowing to continue relentless assaults on the Dawn Syndicate's overseas bases. Translation? They won't stop until they've utterly wiped the Syndicate out. Oh, and there was also a reparations plan. Every player who died during the market incident would be compensated with $2 million each. After reading this, I found myself pretty satisfied with the outcome. What's done is done. It all boils down to how the authorities handle it afterward. And this time, their response had been aggressive enough to even silence criticism. The comment section? Nothing but applause. Finally something done right for once. Dawn Syndicate? Sounds legit. Turns out to be a crime cartel. Yes, crush them. All right, you've earned back a sliver of my trust. Looking for rare materials? Payment up front. DM if you've got any. How did you know I opened my treasure chest and found a killer weapon? Who asked you? Don't mind that idiot. The first thing I saw waking up was him spamming this nonsense. Ruined my good mood instantly. Shut up, man. Seriously. Today, a ton of posts about buying materials flooded the forum. It was obvious countless businesses and wealthy traders had begun throwing money into the game. Sure, things like potions and weapons could technically be crafted in-game, but the process required massive manpower and resources to experiment and refine. That's why earlier, I told Wang Si outright about crafting potential. Holding on to that knowledge wouldn't do me any good, and sharing it wasn't exactly a loss either. Even if those corporations did start successfully crafting stuff, it'd likely just be basic weapons or low-tier potions. The truly unique items? Those are still way beyond their grasp at this stage. After scrolling through the forum for a bit, I got up to freshen myself up. A new day meant my synthesis attempts had reset. It was time to get back to tackling that pyramid. Grabbing some supplies from outside, I stocked up on food for the mama tiger as well as breakfast for myself. Once I'd eaten, I launched the game. The torrential rain continued pounding down. Fierce winds howled endlessly in the background. I opened my inventory and laid out all the materials I could currently synthesize. Howling wind fur, tainted blood, deep sea scales, and light-absorbing crystal. I had long decided the fur would be combined with my character's plain, effectless shoes. I'd take a gamble on crafting a pair of special boots. As for the other 3 items, they were tougher to deal with. The pricier an ingredient, the more hesitant I was to use it recklessly, and I had no solid ideas for these 3 at all. Maybe it'd be safer to split them up instead of mixing multiple rare items together. I stroked my chin and thought for a moment before a spark of inspiration hit me. I took off my character's shoes. Howling wind fur, plus regular shoes. Click to synthesize. Ding. Synthesis successful. You have received the item, Gale Boots. Gale Boots, asterisk. Asterisk description. Crafted from the fur of the creature known as the Howling Wind. Imbued with the essence of the wind itself, granting increased movement speed when worn, asterisk. As I suspected, I grinned. I equipped the boots and controlled my character to try sprinting. The speed jumped significantly, way faster than before. With these boots, even if I encounter a monster I can't beat, I'll have the agility to kite and dodge them easily. Once the initial excitement wore off, I turned my sights back to the tainted blood, deep sea scales, and light-absorbing crystals still sitting in my inventory. Suddenly, a bold idea surfaced. I could combine iron with the tainted blood to see if I could create a one-of-a-kind metal. If it works, I could manufacture my own exclusive materials. While most people don't have synthesis abilities, I'd be producing metals that simply don't exist in the market yet. Weapons, armor, even construction material for refuge evolution. Everything would operate under my rules once I had a custom material base. Taking a deep breath, I steadied myself. My hands. The action didn't stop. Polluted blood plus iron. Click to combine. Ding. Combination successful. You have obtained unknown metal dot. Unknown metal dot. Description: metal infused with the power of a malevolent god, capable of absorbing and isolating spiritual entities. Hint: it can be named. It actually worked. I froze for a moment, then burst out laughing. This changes everything. All my plans could now go forward. In the past life, most people's shelter evolution materials ended up being quite similar, easily predictable and countered by enemies. But not mine. I could use this metal that I synthesized to turn my shelter into an enigma, a form no one could comprehend or exploit. However, in the next moment, I frowned. It's a shame. I don't have enough chances to combine more. If I had enough, I could push forward the first evolution today itself. No matter, the amount needed for the first evolution isn't huge. In the coming days, I'll just keep combining relentlessly until I gather enough. Looking at the unnamed metal in my hands, I thought for a moment. Let's call it Spiritbane Ebony Alloy. Naming successful. This thing specializes in negating spiritual entities, basically, ghosts. In the early days of darkness, the deadliest danger isn't beasts or anything tangible. It's those spectral creatures that phase through walls and enter shelters. A lot of people never even knew how they died, vanishing silently in their sleep. In the past life, everyone would use absolute spirit stones during their first shelter evolution to prevent spiritual intrusion. But my Spiritbane Ebony Alloy? It doesn't just prevent spirits, it absorbs them. My eyes lit up as I resumed combining, using up the last chance I had. Spiritbane Ebony Alloy +1. I'd leave deep sea scales and void light crystals aside for now. They could wait for later. The combination finished. I continued my journey toward exploring the pyramid. Calling out to Tiger Mom, I ascended to the top of the watchtower. Tiger Mom, just like yesterday. Tiger Mom let out a low growl and exhaled a blast of icy breath, instantly forming another frozen bridge across the surging floodwaters. The water churned below, and occasionally shadows of lurking creatures flickered past. Ordering Tiger Mom to retreat, I leapt onto the ice bridge and sprinted ahead. The Windwalker boots on my feet gave me almost supernatural speed, letting me glide across as if I were the wind itself. But not unnoticed. Deep divers locked onto me and leapt from the water, blocking my path. No time for hesitation. I drew my blade and slashed. Within moments, dozens of deep divers lay slain, with deep-sea scales and polluted blood swiftly entering my inventory. I finally reached the entrance of the pyramid and glanced back. The ice bridge was already beginning to melt. The storm howled, and from the floodwaters below, a pale, ghostly silhouette darted by. Damn, another infant god. My heart tightened, and I immediately slipped through the passageway, slamming the entrance shut behind me. The thought of being chased through floodwaters by that grotesque, giant gray baby-like entity made my skin crawl. Inside was the same eerily familiar hallway. With yesterday's experience, I deftly avoided the traps and soon found myself before the towering obsidian gate. This time, you're not catching me off guard. I took out a plank of wood, jamming it against the gate as my character braced and pushed with all his might. The gate shuddered with a thunderous rumble, dust billowing. The wood held firm, and I wasn't poisoned, proving the gate indeed had barbed spikes coated with venom. Pushing harder, the obsidian gate fully swung open. The next second, a fireball whooshed straight toward me. Prepared, I shifted to the side, dodging it cleanly. Beyond the gate was a wide, empty hall, with rows of towering stone pillars etched in intricate carvings. At the far end stood another tightly shut obsidian gate. But what caught my attention the most was the glowing rune suspended in midair near the entrance. There were also two treasure chests, a black iron one and a faintly shimmering bronze chest. A bronze treasure chest? My eyes sparkled. Bronze chests were a grade above black iron ones and had a far higher chance of containing quality items. Just as I started to move closer, a roar snapped me back to reality. At the center of the hall stood a massive, grotesque monstrosity, its bloated body formed from twisted muscle and flesh, as if someone had sculpted it from piles of flabby meat. It had two heads, one human, and another that looked like a snarling dog, grotesquely perched atop its shoulder. Its cruel, bloodthirsty gaze was locked onto me. The butcher. I drew in a sharp breath. One head was human, the other canine. This abomination, a creation of some deranged alchemist, was notorious for its terrifying endurance and almost indestructible hide. This fight's going to be rough. Gripping my katana tightly, I readied myself. Before I could even finish my preparations, the butcher roared and opened its mouth, spewing a blazing fireball. Boom. I swerved to dodge as the fireball crashed into the ground, leaving behind a smoldering, charred crater. The next thing I heard were heavy, earth-shaking footsteps rapidly closing in. The butcher, wielding a colossal blade caked with chunks of rotting flesh, was already in front of me, cleaving down with enough force to split stone. So fast, I gritted my teeth, slipping to one side just in time. A swift counterstrike with my katana dug deep into the butcher's flesh. Blood gushed out violently, and the wound immediately darkened and festered, the rotting effects of my corrosion-infused katana kicking in. The butcher bellowed in rage and spun a wild horizontal slash, creating a whirlwind that cleaved through even the pillars. I had positioned myself far enough back to avoid the worst of it, but that dog head. I opened my mouth just as a fireball came hurtling toward me. Too slow. With the help of my breeze boots, I dodged effortlessly. In the next moment, another head of the creature spewed out dark green venom. Poison too. I narrowly avoided it. The venom hissed as it hit the ground, eating through it and forming numerous pits. I didn't dare stop moving. This monster was throwing out combo attacks. I swallowed my momentary shock and continued evading, holding off on using divine flame magic. I stuck with my blade for now, slashing and slicing shallow yet growing cuts into its hide, over and over to wear it down. Minutes passed as I chipped away, until the butcher's body was riddled with deep, bleeding wounds. Suddenly, it went berserk, dragging its bleeding form across the floor as it charged at me, swinging its massive cleaver with the intent to reduce me to scraps. It's about time, you're done for. Raising one hand, I unleashed golden-white flames that engulfed the butcher's entire body within seconds. But instead of slowing down, the monster seemed even quicker like a scarlet blur streaking toward me. And it's still not dead. A chill ran down my spine. I backpedaled madly, dodging every swing of its blade. Each missed strike left massive gashes in the ground, one splitting the earth into a deep fissure. Divine flame magic. I cast again, summoning fire in the shape of a serpent that coiled around the butcher relentlessly. Its flesh began to char and burn, shrinking as it was consumed by the flames. It stiffened for a moment. Just as I started to relax, thinking the fight was over, the beast moved again. Its speed diminished slightly, but its killing intent burned hotter than ever. Seriously, how tough are you? I resumed circling, dodging just out of reach. With the breeze boots, its cleaver couldn't find its mark no matter how hard it tried. Boom. A single slash severed one of the stone pillars nearby. The butcher, now barely more than a walking skeleton, splattered blood as it moved, limbs shuddering with every step. It didn't have much time left, just needed one final blow to put it down. I frowned, reaching into my pouch to pull out a mana potion. Unscrewing the lid, I downed it in one gulp. The spent mana in my veins roared back instantly. Gotta hand it to you, butcher. You sure don't go down easy. But I'm ending this right now. Burn. I hurled the last of my divine flame magic, the fiery blast erupting into bright light as it engulfed the butcher completely. When the flames waned, the monster finally collapsed with a heavy thud, unmoving. Finally dead. I let out a long exhale, rolling my sore wrist before walking over to the monster's corpse for some well-earned rewards. Collection successful. You have acquired the butcher's heart. The heart, the core of power forged by unscrupulous alchemists to artificially enhance the butcher's strength, was inert now. But consuming it would still grant me considerable physical upgrades. Guess it was worth the effort for some decent loot. I chose to use it on the spot. The butcher's heart dissolved into a radiant glow that surged into my body. My chest jolted as a rush of warmth spread outward, filling every muscle fiber in my body like an electrified current. Within moments, I felt visibly stronger, faster, and sturdier than ever. Now that's what I'm talking about. I threw a punch into the air, startled to hear the air seem to ripple with power. My strikes felt easily twice as strong. Just this one item made every potion I'd burned through in this fight worth it. And there were still treasure chests left to loot right here in the room. I tempered my excitement and approached the floating runes hanging motionless in midair, snatching them with one hand. You have gained the Mage Skill rune, Arcane Missile. Hell yeah, a Tier 1 skill. While by itself Arcane Missile didn't pack the raw destructive punch that Fireball did, its mana efficiency was insane. Easily 3-to-1 compared to Fireball. Carry the same mana load, and instead of throwing just 5 fireballs, I'd be throwing 15 missiles. Its direct impact was more than enough to puncture through most monsters, too. Prime examples being targets like those awful screamers. Up until now, I'd been low on mana and stuck fighting up close, like a wannabe warrior wearing mage robes. With this skill, I could finally function like a proper spellcaster for once in my life. There was no hesitation here. I crushed the rune, absorbing its knowledge. Skill learned. Arcane Missile. A faint hum resonated as white energy coalesced into a small light orb the size of my fist. My thoughts directed its aim, and it blasted forward with a shocking velocity before detonating in a small crater. Solid damage. The mere thought of fighting evasive monsters made me smile. Just fire arcane missiles until they're riddled with holes, and that would be that. No more getting drained halfway through battles and having to awkwardly dance around enemies to conserve mana. Fueled by the prospect of even more fortune, I quickly moved toward the black iron treasure chest near the back of the room. Rubbing my palms together, I threw the lid open. You have opened the black iron chest and acquired the following. Dispel Lantern X1, Iron X100. Another Dispel Lantern? I squinted. Before, I would have cashed these out for profit. But on second thought, maybe I'd combine the 2 lanterns later. There's potential there for something incredible if I upgraded them properly. Adding them to my inventory, I moved on. Finally, I approached the bronze treasure chest, my last big haul for clearing the floor. Pressing my hands together, I whispered a quick prayer. Lady Luck, bring me something game-changing, please. I wasn't fully confident there was any celestial force left listening. But in some worlds rumored swallowed up by chaos or annihilation, whispers of divine echoes lingered. Just maybe. I cracked the chest open. A flash of light followed. and the system prompt displayed my spoils. You have opened the bronze chest and acquired the following rewards. Talent upgrade card X1, ancient wooden staff X1. What the talent upgrade card? My jaw practically hit the floor. And a staff to boot? Staff. I originally just wanted to get some decent loot, but I ended up hitting the jackpot with 2 items at once. As I snapped back to reality, excitement filled my eyes, and I immediately checked the details. Talent upgrade card, used to upgrade your talent once. Ancient wooden staff, reduces mana consumption by 1/10 during spell casting and increases power by 1/10. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. This is it, straight to the top. The upgrade card was exactly what I had been wishing for. With an upgraded talent, I could craft even more. And the staff? Honestly, it felt like a gift from above. I'd been struggling without a good weapon for ages. With this, my damage output would skyrocket and my sustainability would vastly improve. I was starting to wonder if my earlier prayer had actually been answered. Well, whoever or whatever you are, alive or not, today you've earned yourself a believer. Just keep giving me this kind of luck in the future. And if you can't deliver, well, you can get lost. Not wasting any time, I opened my inventory and used the talent upgrade card immediately. Success. Your talent has been upgraded. Talent. Hand of Synthesis. 5 uses per day. Upgradable. I clenched my fist, a wide grin spreading across my face. My daily uses jumped to 7. That's 2 extra attempts today alone. But I didn't use them right away. With the ancient wooden staff in hand, my first priority was to see if I could find some suitable materials to enhance it further. After all, survival in this dungeon depended on boosting my combat power wherever possible. Everything else could wait. Swapping my katana for the staff, I got back on my feet and made my way to the next level. Before I left, though, I scoured this floor one last time, just to make sure I hadn't missed anything important. Satisfied that everything of value had been collected, I stepped up to the massive obsidian doors. Using the same method as before, I pushed with all my strength. With a booming rumble, the giant doors trembled as they began to creak open, revealing a dimly lit staircase descending into the unknown. The sound of rushing wind echoed from below. Suddenly, a giant bat the size of a full-grown adult lunged toward me. Its glowing crimson eyes locked on me, letting out an ear-splitting screech. A bat. Didn't expect such a warm, welcome the moment I opened the door. I couldn't identify the exact species, not that it mattered. This was the Patchwork Realm, an absolute mess of cobbled-together areas filled with all kinds of absurd monstrosities. But having just powered up, I was confident. Raising my staff, I bypassed my newly acquired arcane missile and went straight for scorching flames. With a deafening roar, radiant golden-white flames burst forth, forming blazing chains that streaked through the air. They started with the first bat, then leaped from one to the next, igniting all of the creatures and turning the space into a blinding inferno. Within seconds, the bats were no more than charred corpses raining down to the ground. Over 20 of them, cleared in the blink of an eye. I tapped the staff lightly on the ground and sneered. That's it. The rush was exhilarating. This was the pure joy of being a mage. Though my mana reserves weren't exactly abundant, the reduced cost from the ancient wooden staff made casting scorching flames almost effortless. I walked over to the remains and carefully collected what I could. Collection successful. Obtained. Blood Knight Sand X1. Blood Knight Sand. I'd only ever heard of Nightstone Sand, and even that was just bad droppings. Blood Knight Sand. Excrement of blood bats. Contains certain medicinal properties and is an ingredient in vision-enhancing potions. I raised an eyebrow. It might look like trash, but if it really was key to crafting a vision enhancement potion, it would be highly valuable in a place shrouded in darkness like this. Even if I didn't have a recipe yet, it was worth hanging on to. I descended the stairs cautiously. What initially sounded like rushing wind became clearer. It was the sound of more blood bats swarming toward me. Clutching my staff, I dodged their attacks for a bit, allowing the swarm to build up. Then, with one well-timed scorching flames, the area was instantly cleared again. My stockpile of Blood Knight sand continued to grow. Remaining on high alert for potential traps, I crept downward, minute by minute. After what felt like an eternity, I reached the bottom, where an even darker passage came into view. This should lead to the next level. Ruins like these promised treasure, but they also promised danger. To test the waters, I launched a single arcane missile ahead. When nothing seemed to react, I cautiously moved forward. Then, the ground suddenly softened beneath my feet. Before I could fully process what happened, I looked down and saw a stone tile sinking into place. Ah, crap. A sinking feeling of dread exploded in my gut. The next thing I heard was a thunderous rumbling as something massive began hurtling toward me from further down the passage. The ground trembled as the sound intensified. A giant boulder, a massive one, was barreling toward me with terrifying speed. I knew it. I sighed, pinched the bridge of my nose in exasperation, then raised my staff to hurl a scorching flames spell at the rock. With a loud boom, the golden-white flame engulfed the boulder, but it emerged completely unscathed, still hurtling forward as if nothing had happened. It was some kind of magic-resistant material. Grinding my teeth, I cast another spell. Same result. The boulder just got closer. When it was practically on top of me, I stopped trying to resist. I let out a resigned sigh. Since I couldn't change the outcome, I might as well face it with some dignity. Tucking away my staff, I spread my arms and braced for impact. Bam! You are dead. The words flashed across my phone screen as the display turned blood red. My face twitched in frustration. I could only admit I underestimated the traps in these ruins. Now, I realized I was overthinking it. That rolling boulder I just encountered, if it happened in real life, death would have been certain, with no place to hide at all. The moment I triggered the trap, I saw the steps behind me retract, leaving a bottomless pit that completely cut off my escape route. Unless someone could smash the boulder on the spot, there would only be one outcome. Good thing this is all happening in the game. I let out a sigh of relief. I'll stop here for today. I've already gained plenty, so I'll tackle the rest tomorrow. Perfect opportunity to craft that Dispel Lantern upgrade first, I mumbled as I opened my inventory. I unequipped the old lantern and dragged 2 items together to synthesize. With a flash of light, the notification popped up. Synthesis successful. You have obtained Hope Lantern. Description: the everlasting flame that never goes out. Dispels darkness, increases visibility by 3 meters, and attracts wanderers in the shadows. Hope Lantern. Wow, that's overpowered. I stared at the description, my eyes practically glowing. The previous Dispel Lantern only had a 1-meter range, but now it's 3 meters. Even crazier, it actively attracts wanderers. This means I won't have to run around looking for people anymore. They'll come straight to me. This is amazing. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. I know exactly how valuable wanderers are. Anyone who's survived in the dark zones isn't dead weight. Even the weakest among them are level 2, whereas I'm still only level 1. More importantly, many wanderers carry legacies or life sparks. Like an elf traveling alone might actually be holding the seed of a life tree, which could revive its entire species if planted in the right place. It's the same with angels and demons. While a few bring the hope of preserving their race, most of them are just genuinely skilled. Brewing, crafting, forging, tailoring, you name it. To thrive in the sanctuary, you need them. To grow stronger, you can't do without them. But I quickly frowned. Too bad the timing is off. We're still in the middle of the disaster period, flood season, no less. No way anyone can make it here during this mess. Guess I'll just have to wait until the catastrophe passes. Shaking my head, I equipped the Hope Lantern and prepared for another synthesis session. My talent ability only allows a limited number of synthesizing attempts per day, and today I had just 1 chance left. Not wanting to waste it, I decided to gamble on the staff I had just obtained. It already lowers the mana cost and increases the power of Divine Flame spells. Who knows when I'll come across another staff like this? If I'm going to use it for a while, I might as well make it stronger now. I had the materials prepared too. I'd been saving a mana potion just for a scenario like this. Sure, mana potions don't scream crafting material, but if you don't try, you'll never know. What if it creates something amazing? I rubbed my hands together excitedly and opened my inventory. Mana potion plus ancient wood staff. Synthesize. Ding. Synthesis successful. You have obtained mana staff. Special skill, mana spring. Once per day, fully restores your mana. I immediately burst out laughing. A skill that recharges all my mana once a day. It's a total lifesaver. With this, I can squeeze in 2 more extra uses of Divine Flame during critical moments. Trading a single-use potion for a skill I can use daily? I just struck gold. After calming down, I materialized the staff to take a good look. The old one was an ugly black stick that looked like it had been scorched in a fire. This one had transformed into something elegant with a golden brown body wrapped in deep blue patterns resembling ocean waves. The more I look at it, the more I love it, I grinned. Though casting spells in reality isn't convenient, so I dismissed it back into my inventory. After logging out of the game, I turned to the forums. My next move is to stockpile Blood of Corruption. Technically, not through buying, but swapping instead. Toxins from corruptors, bones, or poisonous arrows I've scavenged from ruins. These are things I have no immediate use for. So now's the perfect time to trade them for Blood of Corruption. A lot of people are selling materials on the forums. Clearly, some big factions are stockpiling them to craft equipment later. While I was initially holding onto these items in case I learned crafting techniques or found a skilled artisan, getting my hands on Krylon Mystic Steel takes priority. No hesitation, I'm cashing them in now. Flood season is peak for deep dwellers, which makes this the easiest time to harvest Blood of Corruption. Once the floods end, sourcing it will become a lot harder. And most people treat Blood of Corruption as junk. It's not forging material, it doesn't seem potion-friendly, and it takes up inventory space while being practically useless. Trading it for something with visible purposes will make most players eager to part with it. Once I've hoarded enough, I can start synthesizing more Krylon Mystic Steel over time. When darkness falls and spiritual entities begin terrifying players into a panic, the demand for Krylon Mystic Steel will skyrocket. Sure, my actions might help a few players advance their sanctuaries to keep pace with mine. But at the end of the day, Krylon Mystic Steel isn't some god-tier resource. Even if they catch up a little, I'll still squeeze, exchange for more rare resources, and keep synthesizing more valuable items. I absolutely won't trade away truly game-changing core materials in the future. I was about to make a forum post when I hesitated, instead pulling up the friend list IDs for Wang Si and Ni Meng. DH. Looking to trade for materials? I've got some extras I don't plan on using and can trade with you both. I smiled. Buying from the forum means waiting for delivery. Trading with them is different, especially since Ni Meng has an inside connection. The official warehouses probably aren't short on things like Blood of Corruption. They're still here in Shanghai, so I could get it directly, which saves time. I waited a long time. Neither of them replied. Most likely, they were busy or still deep into the game. I glanced at the time, cooked some lunch, and then went out to stock up on various supplies. While I was at it, I also grabbed wires, circuit boards, and other items to upgrade my shelter. I knew very well that after darkness descends, the shelter would need modern appliances sooner or later. Without things like a fridge or air conditioning, I'd only be making things harder on myself. Especially heating equipment, better to prepare that in advance. Otherwise, when snowstorms hit, it would be a nightmare. In my previous life, I wasn't prepared. I shivered all day under the blankets, barely able to keep warm. Later, I finally managed to put together a fireplace, but then the cost of firewood broke my spirit. This time, I won't make the same mistake again. After the meal, I summoned the tiger mom and her cub to eat together while I scrolled through the forum. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. Someone replied. Desya. What kind of materials? Asterisk excited emoji asterisk. DH. Ordinary stuff, like corroder's acid. Desya. Just those? DH. Why? Disappointed? What did you think it was? Desya. Honestly, with your vibe, I thought you'd trade some legendary items. But instead, it's just basic stuff. Yeah, a bit let down. DH. Overthinking it. I'm just a regular player. On the other side of the screen, Ni Meng rolled her eyes, silently muttering to herself. Asterisk, I might have believed that before the trading market incident. Who are you trying to fool now? Asterisk. DH. Any way you want it or not. Desya. Of course I do. How much do you have? I'll take it all. DH. All right, but I'm not taking cash. Desya. Not cash? What do you want then? Materials. DH. Something like that. Blood of Corruption. Will you trade for it? Ni Meng froze, but then her eyes lit up. During the flood crisis, deep dwellers were everywhere. Of course, she had seen Blood of Corruption before and knew the official warehouses had a steady stockpile of it. But for Bai Yi to specifically ask for it, that meant it wasn't useless, as they initially assumed. They just hadn't figured out its purpose yet. She replied, Hold on, let me check with my supervisor. Then she got up and walked into Wang Jinggua's office, relaying by Ye's proposition word for word. After hearing her out, Wang Jiangua considered for a moment before saying, "If he wants it, trade with him." "Got it." And I Ming agreed straightforwardly. Wang Jiangua chuckled, "Not going to ask why. What's the point?" And I Ming rolled her eyes. "He clearly knows something about its use. But that's not our concern. If we don't sell, someone else will." Wang Jiangua burst out laughing. "You're catching on. I've always been smart." And I Ming retorted with a pout. Then she strolled back to her office to reply to Bai Yi. "Xia. We can trade, but don't expect 1 vial of acid for 1 drop of blood. DH. Your call. Name your price." "Xia. 1 drop of blood for 3 units of acid." "DH. No way. That's a ripoff. 1 unit max." "Xia. 2 units." "DH. 1. Any more, and it's a loss for me." The two of us went back and forth haggling for an hour before finally settling on an amount. I emptied out my inventory, and from the local night watch division in Shanghai, I exchanged it for 200 drops of blood of corruption. Combined with what I already had, I was nearing 300 drops. That evening, I Ming personally came to deliver the goods and finalize the trade. It was only then that Wang Si responded to my earlier message. His obsession with gaming was out of hand. He was still exploring collapsed mountains after the floods, on the hunt for new landscapes. Wang Si. "The big bro is selling materials now? I want in." "DH. Sold out already. You're way too late." Wang Si. "Ahem. I've been on an adventure somewhere new. Found quite a few things." "DH. Any class runes drop?" Wang Si. "None yet, but I did find a skill rune." "DH. Here to show off?" Wang Si. "Mostly, I wanted to ask if you've got weapons. Ideally a bow. My skill works best with archery." I perked up immediately. "No bow, but I do have arrows." Wang Si. "What good are arrows without a bow?" DH. Make your own bow. Crafting arrows takes way more effort. You can't make that many in a day. I'll save you the hassle and sell you mine instead." After thinking it over, Wang Si agreed. "All right, I'll take them." "How much?" DH. 300 arrows, steel tips, poison-coated, and reusable. 1,000 each. Wang Si. "Fair deal. I'm transferring the money now." The past. DH. "Come on, I'm waiting." My phone buzzed. A notification. 300K hit my account in less than a second. My jaw almost hit the floor. Each arrow was going for $1,000, and people were lining up to buy them. Rich kids. Their spending habits are unreal. Good thing I was the one selling. I couldn't help but feel smug about it. Still, I couldn't let down my guard for too long. Not with the way money was burning away like a bonfire, draining out fast after I bought a truckload of materials to improve my shelter. My savings had dipped to just a few $100,000 now, enough to last only a couple of days. Luckily, this arrow shortage brought King Wang straight back to me with an opportunity for profit. It wasn't until 6:30 p.m. when Wang finally showed up. He stuffed the arrows in his pack and, with an eager expression, asked, "Hey boss, got any gear today?" I rolled my eyes. "No shot. Where would I even get gear for you?" His voice dropped into a hushed tone. "Don't play dumb. I paid good money to find out. Your talent's tied to forging, isn't it? Even the watchmen are betting on it. Word is, your secret's out in the open." A moment of silence. I froze briefly, then retorted quickly, "Me? A forging talent? Funny, I must have missed that memo." Still, keeping a poker face, I added, "Anyway, nothing new in stock for now." Like a light switch flipping, Wang immediately nodded like he was in the know. "Ah, got it. You're staying low-key. Smart move." Pausing at the door, he turned and said, "Next time you've got gear ready, you let me know first. I'll pay cash or trade rare materials. Your call." I gave him a simple nod. Next time, for sure. Only then did Wang break into a toothy grin and walk out. The moment the door clicked shut, I dropped my act, sinking onto the edge of my bed with a deep, bothered frown. The pieces fell into place. This suspicion about my forging talent likely arose because I'd revealed too much advanced equipment too quickly. The watchman probably pieced 2 and 2 together and pegged me for some blacksmith talent before that info trickled down to Wang. Big problem. Forging-related talents were rare as hell. If this got fully exposed, efforts to recruit me, willing or not, could escalate quickly. Even kidnappings weren't off the table. But there was a brighter side. People mistaking me for this pseudo-blacksmith talent. It actually served to protect my real abilities. No one would question future gear releases under this facade. I rubbed my chin, a calculated cold smirk forming. Guess I'll adopt the blacksmith persona for all player interactions moving forward. It even came with extra perks. As the blacksmith, I might start taking commissions, helping other players craft super rare equipment for juicy fees, like rare materials or game currency. 3 units of raw extraordinary material per piece of crafted gear doesn't sound like I'm robbing anyone blind, right? Truth was, with my real capabilities, crafting extraordinary items wasn't hard as long as I had the core resources. And resources would only grow scarcer. Many people last time around barely scavenged by with firearms until months into the apocalypse. Yeah, some other player would definitely bite just to secure even marginally better odds for survival. Still, this scheme wasn't something I'd immediately rush into. My crafting capacity, a limited daily currency, had to mainly fuel my personal growth. This blacksmith hustle thing could wait. That night, after glancing at my crafting plans for tomorrow, I whipped up a quick dinner in the kitchen. Then, exhaustion hit me like a truck and I hit the hay early. Morning came. 6 a.m. sharp. The sky hadn't yet woken. I groggily flipped to my phone, scrolling casually with one hand while absent-mindedly petting the little tiger cub nestled against my other arm. But any trace of sleep vanished as I scoured video platforms for game news. Yet nothing popped. The official lockdown on info is tight, I muttered grimly. Makes sense. Last time, the real details about the Shadowfall didn't leak publicly till after Day 0 struck. This 1-month grace period? Absolutely radio silence from the suits in charge. But too bad for them. They have no idea the Shadowfall storm clock is already ticking down. On this unsettling thought, I switched apps, quickly logging into the anonymous forum for threads. One post instantly hits like ice water dumped over my head. Fellow players, we're done for. Looks like nobody's going to be able to play for the next few days. It wasn't clickbait. OP wasn't saying they had personal trouble with the game. No? Their claim insinuated that everyone might soon find themselves locked down by circumstances. Apparently, they'd logged in early and found their shelter inexplicably inundated by rising floodwaters despite once being strategically placed on elevated ground. Water levels, notably higher than before, had eaten vast stretches of the visible map. Survivable areas above waterline drastically shrank, and monster spawn rates reportedly quintupled. Flooding symptoms aside, OP also shared 3 images, depicting towering, hellish waves that swallowed land whole. Bleak skylines framed by mountain tops peaking barely above the surface. It eerily mirrored imagined Doomsday deluge scenarios. I stared down at the photos, my chest tightening. If those reports match up, yeah, we'll all be landlocked for days. Without wasting another moment, I launched the game myself. My avatar shot up the lookout tower fast like a squirrel on adrenaline, survey lens zeroing toward the pyramid ruins. Nothing. Where sacred structures once proudly stood, now suspended only the ghostly illusion beneath brown murk. The pyramid ruins had disappeared under relentless, unforgiving floodwaters. Dark shadows flickered beneath moving currents. Large clusters of en masse aquatic entities circling their prey hunting feral. The sheer numbers pressed a primal itch between my shoulder blades. Challenging fate beyond shelter borders? Not a chance. These next few days? Yeah, get comfy staying inside. I sighed bitterly. I closed out, taking a moment processing external forums vibration crazily announcing similar experiences left, right ripping apart how finally explorable, yet completely playable Far Realms Gulf Cascades, cleansing last night storm-wide layers real Doomsday. My heart felt a surge of excitement. With 2 attempts left, I took out 2 pieces of deep sea scales to test the waters. Deep sea scale plus deep sea scale. After the synthesis, I got Kraken's counterscale. The description mentioned decent defense, but nowhere near as good as a genuine dragon scale. Trash. I glanced at it and dumped it straight into my inventory. I finally understood, synthesis doesn't guarantee great items. Without the right materials, it's just a waste of attempts. But if you don't try, you'll never know the outcome. That kind of risk is unavoidable. For my final attempt, I pulled out 2 droplets of tainted blood. Tainted blood plus tainted blood. Synthesis successful. You obtained thin dark blood. Its effect provides resistance to dark element attacks upon consumption. My eyes lit up, unable to suppress the excitement. If 2 droplets of tainted blood could refine into something like this, then what kind of effects would higher-tier dark blood have? A thought immediately struck me. If I synthesize thin dark blood again, it might level up even further. But I had already used up my attempts for today. Guess I'll continue tomorrow. I rubbed my sore neck, got up, and walked toward the window. Pulling back the curtain, I saw the cloudy skies and the drizzling rain. The steady patter of raindrops was heavy, suppressing my mood. It's raining in the game, and also in real life. Is there some connection? I couldn't figure it out. Shaking my head, I shoved the thought aside. Rather than overthinking it, I figured I might as well go back to sleep. This weather's perfect for sleeping. I chuckled softly, closed the curtains again, and crawled back into my warm, cozy bed. Meanwhile, overseas, inside a Dawn organization base. Boom. The sound of gunfire and explosions outside was relentless, shaking the safe house violently. A group of blonde, blue-eyed men huddled inside, their faces pale. Are the people from Dachau insane? They're coming after us this hard just because we killed a few ordinary civilians? 5 of our bases wiped out, and now they've even found this one. What do we do now? Inside the room sat 3 men, the leaders of the Dawn organization. The man in the middle had just opened his mouth when the other 2 looked even more grim. They had poured every cent they earned from mercenary work into this organization, establishing several bases in war-torn regions where they'd been recruiting players nonstop. Their future had seemed bright. Then, a few days ago, it all went to hell. They had ventured into Dachau to kill civilians and gather materials, backed by the weapons and bounty promises of certain nations. That gave them the confidence to storm in with firearms. And yes, they killed a few people. But the team they sent out? Total annihilation. To make matters worse, Dachau traced their identities, launching full-scale retaliation. In mere days, Dachau deployed multiple elite special forces units to systematically uproot their bases one by one, leaving no room to escape. Even this most concealed hideout wasn't spared. If they stayed any longer, all 3 of them would die here, and the Dawn organization would be finished. The man on the left scowled. What else can we do? Run. Stay here and wait to die. They sent elites this time. It's only a matter of time before they break in, and I'm not going down with this place. The man on the right gritted his teeth. York, you think I want to die here? But you're seriously okay with just running away? All of our efforts, all destroyed. York sneered. Oh yeah, what do you suggest then? Revenge? Come on, don't kid yourself, Newt. Newt stared at the 2 of them, his voice low and steady. I know it's hard, but we don't just walk away and give up. You both know how important that mysterious game is. We had the advantage before, and now we've lost everything. Even if we manage to escape and rebuild, it'll take too long. The man in the middle frowned as he lit a cigarette, exhaling heavily. So what exactly are you suggesting? Give me a plan. As long as it's not blowing up the planet, I'm listening. Newt grinned. I'm not trying to blow up the world. I'm trying to turn the game around. He tossed 2 files onto the table. Remember why our team in Dachau failed? Yerk snarled. Of course I remember. Some dumbass who got lucky and gained supernatural powers through the game. He froze mid-sentence. Wait, are you targeting him? Yerk flipped through the file. The man in the middle had already finished reading, and his expression had visibly changed. This is insane. This guy can actually craft equipment from the game? Newt, you're sure this is accurate? Absolutely. Newt nodded, his tone confident. Don't forget, we managed to plant a few players on the Dachau side, one of whom infiltrated a guild and even reached mid-level status. It was confirmed straight from his superior's mouth. You should know what this means. We know. Of course we know. The 2 men's eyes lit up with understanding. York slammed the table, laughing loudly. Kidnap him, force him to work for us. If we have him, we'll rebound in no time. Even if we have to start over. Haha. Newt, this intel is priceless. It sure is. Newt nodded again, his voice burning with intensity. You're exactly right. Capture him, and we'll rise again. But the real key is this, the thing I found in the game yesterday. It's even more important than that Dachau player. This is how we make our comeback. The core of the disc. Newt pulled out his phone, and a statue from his backpack fell into his palm. Both frowned and leaned closer to check the message. The next second, their pupils suddenly contracted. In the room, I had just woken up when I sneezed, a strange sinking feeling welling up in my heart. Why did I sneeze out of nowhere? Is somebody thinking of me? I rubbed my head but didn't dwell on it any further, turning to make some lunch. No games to play for now, so I just live a few normal days. After all, this stability wouldn't last long. I binge shopped on Amazon, ordering a gaming console and a bunch of cartridges. My computer was also stocked with downloaded movies. When the real darkness descended, these were going to be valuable commodities. Just like that, the day went by. July 7th. It's been exactly a week since I was reborn. The next morning, I woke up early as usual. After washing up and making breakfast, I checked my messages. A notification said my package had arrived, and I'd pick it up later. After eating, I launched my game, rushing to the watchtower right away. The floodwaters had risen even higher. Exploration was still impossible. Luckily, the watchtower was tall enough, so the shelter was safe from flooding for now. I returned to the shelter with a grim look, ready to start my crafting session for the day. I debated how to allot today's 5 crafting attempts. If I poured it all into crafting cryptic gold alloy, my shelter could evolve for the first time today, but then I'd use up all my attempts. After a moment's reflection, I decided against it. Evolution can wait. Pollution blood comes first. I used one attempt to craft a drop of diluted dark blood. With the one I had from yesterday, I now had 2 drops. Let's see what these can make. I confirmed the synthesis. Synthesis successful. You've received Dark Essence. Dark Essence. I was stunned, not expecting it to turn into something so different from concentrated dark blood. I immediately checked the description. Dark Essence. A pure dark power refined from dark blood. Consuming it will grant a random dark-related skill, usable once per person. My eyes widened instantly, my heart racing. Previously, diluted dark blood only boosted resistance. But now, it actually granted skills. This was such a massive improvement. Although it could only be used once per person, this was akin to obtaining a skill rune. Everyone on the forums knew how rare skill runes were. Since the game launched, the number of people lucky enough to acquire skill runes could be counted on one hand, not even 1%. They were astronomically valuable. In other words, the Dark Essence before me was worth an absurd amount. And even better, it was synthesizable. With a clear synthesis path, mass production was theoretically possible. I could even go into bulk production mode. If this news got out, it would drive players worldwide into a frenzy. I took several deep breaths to calm myself down. Revealing this could bring enormous wealth, but would also incite immense danger. Even officials or powerful groups would target me. Quickly, I made a decision. Keep the Dark Essence under wraps as much as possible. Occasionally trade 1 or 2, pretending they're random drops from loot crates. Too many would raise suspicion. Best to prioritize using it on my own allies. Tiger Mom, Tiger Cub, and the Wanderers I'd recruit in the future all counted as my own. When I was strong enough that no one dared touch me, I could consider other options. Without further hesitation, I materialized the Dark Essence in my hand. It looked like a solid black glass bead, black like the abyss, as if it absorbed even light itself. Its appearance alone was enough to make people uncomfortable. I was tempted to consume it immediately, but after some hesitation, I stowed it in my backpack instead. If 2 drops of diluted dark blood can synthesize Dark Essence, then what could 2 Dark Essences synthesize? It could be something stronger or something totally useless, but it was worth the gamble. I started synthesizing again. With only 3 crafting attempts left today, I wouldn't be able to produce another higher tier item. I could only save up for a second Dark Essence and wait for tomorrow. After I finished, I was ready to log out for the day. Suddenly, there was a deafening crash. A booming sound struck from above. What was that? The direction seemed to be from the watchtower roof. Could it be a monster attacking the tower? My expression darkened instantly. I got up and shouted, "Tiger Mom, we're heading back." Roar! Tiger Mom, who was playing with Tiger Cub in the living room, immediately responded and followed me back to the shelter. I recalled Tiger Mom and controlled my character to dash to the top floor of the watchtower. As soon as I opened the door, wind and rain lashed at my face. Boom! Another crash echoed, mixed with the frenzied screeches of countless monsters. Looking down, my pupils shrank. A boat. A small wooden boat had somehow drifted up to the edge of the shelter, pushed against the tower's walls by floodwaters. In the flood, hordes of deep divers swarmed the boat, trying to climb aboard. But the boat's exterior was cloaked in a blue magic shield, keeping the creatures at bay. A magical barrier. Someone's on that boat. I frowned, unease growing in my chest. Roar, what are we going to do? Tiger Mom growled lowly, her gaze jittery. I understood what she was anxious about. The boat was pressed against the watchtower. If its shield dissipated, deep divers could climb aboard and use the boat to scale the tower, directly threatening the shelter. Deep divers were weak individually, but their numbers were overwhelming. There were already hundreds visible from here, with a massive shadow still looming underwater. All of them were deep divers. I couldn't let them climb the watchtower. Otherwise, I wasn't sure if the door on the top floor would hold. I mulled it over briefly, then made a decision on the spot. Tiger Mom, keep a sharp eye up there and freeze all those monsters. I'm heading down. Roar, are you crazy? Going down there will get you killed. It's fine, I said with a chuckle and a shake of my head. I already told you, I won't die. I can resurrect, and besides, I might not even die in the first place. When the magic barrier collapses, destroy this ship. The deep seekers will scatter naturally. Roar, then why not wait and destroy it later? Why bother going down? Because there might be treasure on board. I licked my lips, my eyes alight with excitement. This was an uncharted vessel, most likely not owned by any players but built by wanderers of the Darklands instead. If I could snag some valuable loot, it'd be a major win. And if I found some surviving wanderers? Well, that'd be an even bigger jackpot. Opportunities like this don't come by every day. Without hesitation, I secured a rope from the lookout tower to leave myself an escape route, then leapt over the edge, sliding down and landing directly on the ship. The magical barrier surrounding the ship didn't stop me. It wasn't a spell, but a mechanism that only activated in response to hostility. The moment I touched it, the shield cracked open just enough for me to slip through and land on the deck. The moment I arrived, the screeches of the deep seekers erupted around me, like they wanted to shatter both eardrums and sanity. But I didn't care. My eyes were locked on the barrier. The surface was already showing signs of strain, countless cracks spreading outward. Not much time left. I muttered under my breath before turning and darting toward the ship's cabin. Scattered across the deck were several corpses, a grim welcome party, as though they'd already been dead upon drifting here. Usually, I'd stop to loot anything worth taking, but not now. Finding anyone alive took priority. I pushed open the cabin door. Inside was a hallway lined with 5 rooms. The first was a mess. On the floor lay a single body with a knife plunged into its stomach, the hand still gripping the hilt tightly. Suicide. I wasn't surprised. In the darkness, wanderers often lose their minds to despair, choosing to end things on their own terms. A quick search turned up nothing valuable. Frowning, I moved on to the second room. Inside lay 2 more bodies, seemingly a couple. On the table, however, sat a necklace. My eyes lit up as I grabbed and inspected it. Magic necklace. Description: increases mana regeneration speed by 50% when worn. Great find, I muttered, slipping it on. It wouldn't directly boost my combat power, but it drastically improved my sustainability. I didn't linger, moving quickly to room 3. The moment I opened the door, a guttural snarl exploded in my face, a monster lunging toward me. A deep-sea shark man? I sidestepped the attack and got a clear look at my assailant. It was humanoid but far from human, its body covered in icy blue scales, its face resembling a demon's, and a thick tail trailing behind it. The air reeked of salt and decay. This was no ordinary merman. It was an evolved predator, a monstrously fast variant known as the Shark Man. In the room behind it lay several fresh bodies, its latest victims, no doubt. The Shark Man roared again, claws flashing, each capable of tearing through metal. I dodged the swipe, raising my staff as the buzzing sound of arcane magic built up. With a crack, an arcane missile streaked through the air, slamming into the Sharkman's skull. The impact sent it hurtling into a wall, though it wasn't dead yet. It only grew more enraged. It whipped its tail around in a sweeping counterattack, obliterating the wall as it went. But I was faster, darting into its blind spot. "Let's see how long you last," I said coldly, sending a second missile flying. The Sharkman stumbled back, roaring in defiance. But as it struggled to rise, I had already readied the third. Bam! Its head burst apart on contact, and its body finally fell limp. It had taken 3 full blasts to kill it, a testament to its strength. But my strength was greater. Kneeling beside the body, I examined it. Collection successful. Obtained Sharkman Lung X1, Sharkman Tooth X1. I glanced at the description and scoffed. Trash. The rewards weren't worth much. I shifted my focus to rummaging through the room. A hall of fruit wine, intricately patterned gold and silver, and finally, in a desk drawer, a blueprint. Greenhouse blueprint. Description: used with crafting materials to construct a greenhouse for planting crops. Single-use. My excitement spiked. Greenhouses are absolutely crucial after the advent of darkness, providing sustainable crop growth and unique perks far superior to DIY setups. I'd already been stockpiling seeds, just waiting for an opportunity like this. Pocketing the blueprint, I confirmed there was nothing else worth taking and headed toward the fourth room. I pushed the door open, and the stench of blood hit me like a wall. Bodies littered the floor, chaos solidified into a grisly scene. The dark red of dried blood had nearly painted the room. In one corner, a young man lay barely clinging to life. His expression shifted to shock and disbelief as he saw me enter. So there really are others out there. I quickly knelt beside him. Hold on, I'll heal you. Summoning holy flames, I cast divine flame healing, surrounding him in golden white fire. But his condition didn't improve. His wounds were too extreme. His abdomen almost entirely hollowed out, the gaping injuries spreading toward his heart. Even divine flame healing wasn't enough. The young man coughed up blood, his hand gripping my wrist with surprising strength. Forget about me, outsider. I'm finished. Save her, she's in danger. She must survive. I immediately asked, who is she? Where is she? His breaths came in gasps as he forced the words through gritted teeth. She's in the last room. Hurry, she's. Before he could finish, his head fell limp, the light in his eyes fading. I frowned slightly, muttering, what a shame. I stood, eyes narrowing on the final door, the fifth room. Take a deep breath, not daring to hesitate any longer, and turned to rush toward the far end of the hallway. The last door was right in front of me.